At Food Revolution Network, we believe healthy, sustainable food should be for everyone. And when you give your body the right fuel, you can thrive. Each year, the Food Revolution Summit features world-renowned experts sharing life-changing insights. But with so much wisdom, it can be hard to take it all in at once. That's why we created the Empowerment Package. Lifetime access to every summit episode and interview, full transcripts, and over $1,000 in bonuses to help you absorb and apply it all at your own pace. When you invest in an empowerment package, you're taking a stand for your health. And you're also investing in the food revolution. You're joining a movement that's changing the course of history. Plus, with every package purchased, we donate to Trees for the Future, so they can plant another organic fruit or nut tree in a low-income community. So if you want to nourish your body, support those you love, and help to heal the planet, this is your moment. Join us. Support the mission. Get your empowerment package today. Hello everybody, Ocean Robbins here. So excited that in about 15 minutes we will begin our broadcast of episode 7 of the 2025 Food Revolution Summit docuseries, Healthy People, Healthy Planet. Today our focus is nutrition, facts and fads and essential nutrients, and how to master your nutritional needs. We're going to be cutting through the confusion. With so many fads and trends and conflicting headlines, it can be hard to know what your body really needs. In today's episode, we will unpack critical truth about protein and soy, about gluten, about omega-3s, and a lot more. And we're going to explore which supplements might be helpful and which might not be helpful. You'll also learn about the foods that hijack your hunger cues and the essential nutrient most people are missing. This is your chance to get grounded in science and make food choices that really support your optimal health and well-being. If you just joined us, we will be starting episode 7 in about 14 minutes, and I'm Ocean Robbins, your host, welcoming you. As we move through the day, please continue posting and sharing in the comment section on the broadcast page, sharing about your top takeaways, your questions, your aha moments, and what this all means for you. Laura said, I did more exercise and activity this Sunday and still had energy left over. Then I have, Laura said, I still had more energy left over than I've had in a long time. Ecstatic doesn't even come close to my elation right now. I rebooted my eating one day before the summit began, ate only plant-based meals, plus having a green smoothie for lunch. On the first day, my mind felt so much clearer and my day 2 energy was amazing. Thank you to your program and all the contributors which continue to encourage us to keep going. Laura, that is such wonderful news. Congratulations to you for having more energy and more vitality. We hear this often. You know, some people make changes and it can take a while to feel the results. Other people, it happens fast, even within a day or two. Bless you. I hope you're able to keep using that energy to create positive feedback loops. Bless you, and thank you for sharing your story. Renee said, just watched yesterday's episode on replay. Thanks so much. I suffer from sarcopenia, and I'm 63 years old. I lost 60 pounds after having a heart attack and strokes 2 years ago and walk almost every day, but have not done any strength training. This was very helpful. By the way, I started a vegan diet about 2 months ago and feel great already. Renee, thank you for sharing. And yes, you know, you've taken such huge steps in these last couple of years, and congratulations on that. And that weight loss also probably makes it a little easier to move more, which is great. And as you lean into that, you get positive feedback loops. And as you build strength, you get stronger. It's one of the really cool things about working out is you can literally do more, not necessarily the next day, but over time you get stronger and stronger and stronger. And isn't that just a beautiful thing in life? Anytime you develop a new skill, you can actually get more competent at it. And healthy eating is one of those skills, by the way, folks. As you lean into healthier eating, your body gets used to it, your brain gets used to it, you learn the recipes you like, you learn the routines that you like, and it gets easier and easier and easier. Same with strength training, same with all the aspects of lifestyle medicine. And they create positive feedback loops where as you have more energy, it's easier to make healthy choices, easier to plan ahead, to set yourself up for success. Jennifer said, "Thank you for all who are involved in making this possible. I started drinking coffee with lots of sugar and cream at age 5, smoking at age 10, and drinking alcohol daily at age 12, along with a terrible diet. Lived this way for 22 years, and my body, mind, and spirit ended up completely crashing in 1996, and I had numerous disorders and diseases, 15 different conditions. I did get sober at that time and have never gone back to drinking, but the rest of it has taken all these years to keep working on healing. A year ago, I started plant-based, joined a gym, and was swimming and walking several times a week. I started to feel fabulous very quickly and started losing weight. Then my mother, who was 93 at the time, got bone marrow lymphoma cancer. I quit my good long-term job and flew to Vermont to take care of her for a year. During this time, I wasn't doing plant-based or exercising or sleeping much. Now I'm back in Virginia, and this program is helping me get back on my feet again. I started my plant-based lifestyle again with your encouragement and education, started exercise, and as soon as I get a new job, we'll join your Whole Life Club to keep motivated. I want you to know how important this summit is to me." Jennifer, thank you for sharing. What a journey you have been on. And one of the things we find is that when we've had, especially like years and years of really unhealthy habits, even if we make a big breakthrough, those patterns are still there, which means it's so easy to slide back in a time of extreme stress like you experienced. So we're sending you so much love and compassion, and also grateful that you're having the support now to kind of get back on the wagon, as it were, to get back on track. We're wishing you all the best in your health, in your exercise, in your dietary patterns, in your wellness, and hopefully in finding a new job, and hopefully we'll get to welcome you in Whole Life Club very soon. Diane said, "I'm in a wheelchair. I do exercises in my chair. Does that make any difference?" Diane, thank you for your question and for sharing a little piece of your journey with us. The answer is a resounding yes. Exercising in your chair absolutely makes a difference. Any movement that strengthens your muscles and increases your circulation and brings you more alive and gets your heart rate flowing can have real benefits for your health, no matter your mobility level. As a matter of fact, the less you can do, the more what you can do is critically important. There's been research showing the difference between walking a little bit and walking not at all, for those who can walk, can be absolutely massive to Alzheimer's risk. Same is true with moving a little bit in your chair or a lot in your chair. So chair exercises can help improve cardiovascular health. They can strengthen muscles and joints. They can support better balance and posture. They can boost your mood and energy and overall quality of life. They can help regulate blood sugar balance and reduce inflammation. And beyond the physical benefits, choosing to move your body in any way that you can is an important act of self-care and empowerment. It's not about comparing yourself to anybody else. It's about celebrating what you're doing, honoring your body as it is, and doing what you can with what you've got. And of course, bringing love, kindness, and attention whenever you can. So Diane, thank you. You are a shining example of resilience and determination and hope that I hope is an inspiration to everybody who's watching. Gemma said, "I've been watching and sharing the Food Revolution for many years. It's great that the information is updated and verified every year. The fresh, healthy recipes are also something to look forward to." Thanks for calling that out, Gemma. Yes, wonderful responses to the recipes of the day. And for those who don't know, every day of the summit, we have 3 more recipes of the day right on the broadcast page, so you can cook along as we go. Gemma goes on to say, "Good health through diet, exercise, stress, and sleep management is not only good for humans, it's great for a sustainable planet. Thanks for all the hard work of the team behind this project. The knowledge will empower us to live our best lives. I'm passionate about helping people overcome chronic disease through lifestyle modification. Can you provide more information on how to become a certified coach?" Yes, Gemma, thank you for asking, and thank you for being a part of this movement with us. So yeah, a lot of folks watching may be thinking, gosh, I want to go deeper with this. I want to understand more. I want to go understand not just the basics, but deep knowledge. And I also want to help inspire others. So that's why we created FRN's plant-based coaching certification. Every year, we certify hundreds of new coaches to become ambassadors for this message in the world. And the coaching program has 3 pillars. One is nutrition. We go really deep into the science of nutrition. Number 2 is coaching. You learn about how to motivate people, how to inspire people, how to help people change behavior, and what the science actually says about that. And number 3 is impact. And we look at 3 different levels of impact for different tracks people may want to take. And one of those is entrepreneurship. How do you become a coach and get a business going and make a living, whether it's a side gig or a full-time role as a coach? Number 2 is employment. How do you get a job in the field? And number 3 is changing the world. How can we be activists and change the way the world eats? And we look at real life case studies of people who have created massive change in the food revolution movement. So this is all here, and we start the next cohort in January. And if you register now with a $100 refundable deposit, you can actually get a special discount. So if you go to certification.foodrevolution.org, Gemma, you can learn all about it, and we hope to see you in the program. It is awesome. Now, folks, here's something I woke up thinking about this morning. Isn't it a little strange that we've got health food stores and then we've got normal food stores? Isn't it a little strange we've got organic food with a special label and a special price, and then we've got conventional food that's sprayed with pesticides and maybe grown with genetically engineered seeds and is sprayed with herbicides and toxic fungicides that we know can cause cancer? Isn't it a little odd that we have to be kind of considered weird or radical to just eat wholesome, healthy food that's safe for your family? Isn't it kind of like having an auto showroom dedicated to non-exploding cars? I mean, let's face it, healthy food should be normal, right? Shouldn't it be normal to have food that's nourishing for our bodies and safe for our kids to eat? The good news is we are making changes, and healthy food is becoming more socially acceptable all the time, and we are part of a wave of history turning the tide. More and more people are realizing that food matters, that where it comes from matters, that how it's growing matters, and that it can shape the quality of our lives. More and more people are realizing that health doesn't come from a pill or a drugstore or a surgery. It comes from how we nourish our bodies and how we live. Now, medicines can absolutely help to address symptoms or to solve big problems that have gone too far for lifestyle medicine to handle on their own. But fueling your body with the right fuel always helps. It always makes a difference. And you deserve the best. So thank you all for being in this journey with us and remembering together we can change the course of history. There are more than 250,000 people in this summit, and together we're making change in our lives, but we're also shifting culture, and that's powerful. If y'all just joined us, we'll be starting episode 6 in the Food Revolution Summit docuseries in just a couple of minutes. I'm Ocean Robbins, sharing some welcoming words. Kaylin said, I love this summit. It's the first time I've listened or heard about it, so thank you. I've been whole foods plant-based for about 8 months. No refined oils, no sugar, no caffeine, no alcohol. But I have the problem of not feeling satisfied after eating a big whole foods plant-based meal. My cravings for wanting cookies and desserts after eating are strong. Can you help me understand why I'm having these cravings? Kayleen, thank you for your question, and thanks for everything you're doing to care for your health. 8 months of whole food plant-based eating with no refined oils or sugars or caffeine or alcohol is an accomplishment, and I want to celebrate your dedication. Now, about those cravings that you're talking about, you're not alone. This actually is reasonably common. It can happen for a few important reasons. One of them is biological and habitual patterns. You see, our brains are wired to seek out calorie-dense sweet foods because for most of human history, these foods were rare and they were critical for survival. Add to that the habits a lot of us grew up with, like always ending meals with dessert, and it's no wonder that cravings can feel strong. Another reason is calorie density and nutrient balance. So Whole plant foods are wonderfully rich in fiber and nutrients, but they're also a lot lower in calorie density compared to processed foods. So sometimes, even after a big meal, you may be physically full but not fully satisfied if you're not getting enough calories, including healthy fats or plant-based proteins. Now, if your meals are primarily vegetables and grains without enough protein-rich foods like legumes, lentils, beans, tofu, tempeh, nuts, or seeds, then you might find your body signaling that it needs more nourishment or even more protein. So adding a small amount of healthy whole food fats like avocado or tahini or walnuts or ground flax seeds can help with satiety. And you also may want to make sure you're getting a good amount of healthy plant-based protein. There are also some emotional and psychological triggers that you may want to consider. Cravings are less sometimes about hunger than about emotion, comfort, reward, or habit. So some ideas that may help you could including a source of healthy fat and plant-based protein, ending meals with something naturally sweet like dates or baked apples or berries, and listening to your body with compassion. So I hope that is helpful for you. All right, folks, it is time for us to move into episode 7 of the Food Revolution Summit docuseries. Here we go.
The food revolution is ultra important.
The food revolution is an opportunity to change your life for the better.
What if food could be your medicine?
Learn how to eat to live a longer life.
If you want longevity, then focus on life-giving nutrition.
The food revolution is happiness.
The food revolution is vital for human health and the planet.
What if food could change everything?
What if food could reduce your risk of cancer?
What if your food choices could shape the future?
Now is the time for change.
Say yes to the change you want to see.
Now is the time to take charge of your life.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
It's time for a food revolution.
The food revolution starts now.
The food revolution starts now.
The food revolution starts now, baby.
We have today a sea of often overwhelming and frequently contradictory information competing for our attention. And the noise is only getting louder now that corporate and political agendas are using AI and bots to co-opt algorithms and dominate news feeds. There's an old saying that a person with one watch knows what time it is. A person with 2 watches is never quite sure. It seems like every day another so-called expert is telling you everything you thought you knew about nutrition was wrong. And most of them are selling something too, by the way.
But there's a beacon of truth amidst the chaos. Science, rooted in genuine curiosity and at its best, unclouded by bias, science can reveal what our bodies really need and what they really don't.
A lot of education comes from influencers, people who are swayed by industry. They're getting paid special interests, right? Like the meat and dairy industry, it's like they have billions of dollars to advertise, and plants don't. So what we can rely on is evidence-based physicians to actually present the science to people, the lay people who are not in the medical industry, to our wonderful dietitians who are making a huge difference in this world, to our nurses, PAs, and of course, doctors, and just keep educating. And I think it isn't easy, of course, because you're getting false advertisement and the push with a lot of dollars coming from the meat and dairy industry, but you just have to keep presenting the science.
Some people say that to unlock our best health, we should eat more like our ancestors. Did we evolve to eat in a certain way? And if so, what did our ancestors eat anyways?
We will look back at the history and we know that for most of human history, people ate plants. Hunter-gatherers were really gatherers that were occasional hunters. Less than 20% of the time they were actually successful in hunting. Most of the time they're out gathering. And we know that because when they look at fecal samples, poop from Paleolithic people, they were eating 70 to 100 grams of fiber a day. That's not what you find in a carnivore diet.
Right.
So they were eating lots of plants. And then we look at, what's happened in our population as we've moved into this processed diet and heavy meat diet. We've seen a massive spike of chronic disease. 131 million Americans take prescription drugs every day. 2.5 billion people in the world are overweight or obese. I mean, we're doing something wrong. What we're eating is not helpful.
Some people think about ancestral eating and, eating the way that our bodies were designed to eat. Mm-hmm. And the whole paleo movement is based on this philosophy that we should eat foods the way that nature intended and the way that our ancestors traditionally did. What are your thoughts on ancestral eating, and what is the sort of modern approach to the paleo concept getting wrong?
Well, the paleo idea was that we should eat the way people ate before modern agriculture. Don't plant stuff, don't milk a cow. To their credits, they're kind of anti-dairy. Mm-hmm. But they got the idea that this means meat. Well, I don't know about them, but my ancestors, I'm talking about going way back, are great apes. We're not cats and dogs. We're not natural meat eaters. The great apes are humans, chimpanzees, orangutans, gorillas, bonobos. That's it. If you look at their diets, number one, dairy is not part of it. Number two, they're not eating a steak. They are either almost entirely or entirely plant-based. And meat eating was not a thing at all, really, until the Stone Age, when people figured out how to make arrowheads and knives and spears. I mean, imagine with just your hands, capture a bull and eat him. I don't think that's going to happen. But the Stone Age changed everything. It made it possible to kill animals. When we got fire, now you're onto something, you can cook. And then comparatively recently, people figured out how to make cows stand still, and they brought dairy into it. But the idea that the paleo thing is frankly something for insecure men who like to picture themselves in a loincloth with a spear, living at this one particular isolated moment in history when people had acquired the technology for killing and dismembering animals, but had not yet figured out how to plant anything. And so that's this world they're living in. And to take their advice is like taking dietary advice from your drunk Uncle Ernie. These people have some kind of big thing that they think means something to them, but scientifically there's nothing whatsoever to it. And when people eat that way, what are you doing? You're eating a big load of cholesterol and a big load of saturated fat, and you're not getting the fiber that you need, and you're just asking for trouble.
The paleo diet has gained popularity in part because it cuts out a lot of problematic foods like dairy, processed junk, artificial additives, and added sugars. For many people, this is a big step in the right direction. But it also tends to eliminate grains and legumes, which are some of the most consistently health-promoting foods we know of. And it often emphasizes heavy meat consumption, which, as we've seen, can come with significant health risks.
At the same time, another dietary trend has taken the world by storm, the ketogenic diet. Originally developed as a medical intervention for epilepsy, keto focuses on slashing carbohydrates and increasing fat intake to push the body into a state of ketosis, where it burns fat for fuel instead of carbohydrate. Many people turn to keto for weight loss, blood sugar control, or cognitive benefits. But the mainstream keto approach often leans heavily on animal products like butter, bacon, and cheese, which can raise concerns about long-term health impacts, especially heart health.
For a meta-analysis published in Frontiers in Nutrition, a group of scientists, researchers, and registered dietitians analyzed more than 100 peer-reviewed studies on keto diets to identify long-term effects. They found that people who follow ketogenic diets long-term have a significantly increased risk of developing heart disease, LDL cholesterol buildup, kidney failure, Alzheimer's disease, type 2 diabetes, and cancer.
Some people have explored a plant-based version of keto, though it's very restrictive and typically focuses on non-starchy vegetables, nuts, seeds, avocados, olives, and bottled oils. Some people have found benefit from this dietary pattern, at least in the short term. But over time, it tends to be too restrictive, and it's really hard to get all the nutrients you need on an exclusively plant-based ketogenic diet.
One thing that is intriguing, however, is research showing that ketones themselves may offer some real benefits. So let's take a look at what we know about ketones and how they might impact our health.
Now, a lot of people think ketones and keto and all of that type of thing, similar mechanism in that we're trying to produce ketones in the body, but ketones are somewhat helpful. In fact, even when you drink coffee, ketones are produced. It's all about how you get those ketones though, right? So if you're eating bacon-wrapped scallops and you're getting a keto diet and ketones that way, that's not what I would recommend. But ketones seem to be somewhat helpful actually, and it may be an interesting way that that's generating better health outcomes. But I think in general, it's really cutting out the calories, preventing the sugar spikes. So if you're at a workplace, and healthcare is notorious for this, you walk by the doctor's lounge, the nurse's station, wherever, there's donuts and cookies and juice and, things you just want to skip. And what we do is we kind of just graze throughout the day, eating all kinds of calories you probably don't need. And figuring out how to let go of that is really powerful. And that's where intermittent fasting comes in. So I think the jury is still not fully, deliberated on this, but I think it's worth looking into. And for many people, it's quite helpful to lose additional weight.
Some popular dietary patterns have scientific backing, while others are still up for debate or may even be harmful. They might sound compelling at first glance, but fall apart when you look at the actual research. One of those is the so-called blood type diet. The idea that what we should eat depends on our blood type has been floating around for years, but does it actually hold up to scrutiny?
It really all started with a book with someone who had these theories that if you were blood type O, you needed to eat meat. And if you were blood type A, you had to eat less of meat. And so, but really when we look at the hard evidence, when we're looking at those research studies that he quoted in the book, none of them are actually true. There's no validity to any of that quote, those theories, that science. So it just keeps coming back up. I'm not quite sure why, because every time it does, there's just no research behind it. And, there is someone who said, one of the doctors said that, we're pending research coming out, but the research just has never been there. So until I see something published, the blood type diet is, everyone should eat more fruits and vegetables, I think, for all blood types.
So when it comes to the blood type diet, the verdict is pretty clear. Decades after the book started selling millions of copies, there's still simply no scientific evidence to back it up. No credible studies show that people fare better or worse with different dietary patterns based on their blood type. What we do know from mountains of research is that some foods promote health across the board, like vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts and seeds, while others, like processed junk, added sugar, and excessive animal products, are linked to higher risks of chronic disease.
But even within the world of science-backed nutrition, there are a lot of different dietary patterns that people follow. And that brings us to a big question. What makes a diet truly healthy? Is it just about the ingredients on the plate, or is there something more to it? To explore this, let's dive into what the latest research tells us about the best dietary pattern for human health.
I would love to talk about dietary patterns because I've recently served as the chair of the American Heart Association, and one of our main functions is to write scientific statements about confusing issues. And one of them that just came out was popular diet patterns. It just came out last year. And let me tell you a challenge of actually addressing that issue. And one is how those diet patterns are intended versus how they're consumed. So let me just start with that for a minute. So imagine somebody tells you they're Mediterranean. You say, great, I've heard that's a very popular diet. It seems like you had an Egg McMuffin for breakfast and a Big Mac for lunch and a Whopper for dinner. How is it that you're Mediterranean? I say, well, I have a little jigger of olive oil next to my nightstand, and before I go to bed, I chug that olive oil, so I'm a Mediterranean, right? No. There's way more to the Mediterranean diet than olive oil. And in fact, there's almost more to the Mediterranean diet than food. I remember the Center for Science and Public Interest did a really nice write-up of this years back saying it's not just the food, it's the afternoon siesta. It's walking around with a flock of sheep for hours and hours each day. It's social connectivity. So the Mediterranean diet as intended is probably different than some people are practicing it.
So a plant-based diet can take a variety of forms. One of the most kind of easy ones to associate it with is the Mediterranean-style dietary pattern. Again, really rich in fresh fruits and vegetables, generally low in animal products, and focuses on those whole foods rather than those more processed and refined foods.
But we've seen these humble foods that everybody knows they should be eating, but people by and large kind of neglect them. The people who eat the most vegetables and fruits, you'll see if you just track their cognitive function. For people, let's say that the highest maybe quartile of vegetable consumption in the US, their cognitive decline is slowed compared to other people, and their cognitive age is about 11 years less than other people. And, Ocean, I got to tell you, to get into the top quartile, I'm talking about the top category of vegetables and fruits in the U.S., you don't have to eat very much. You know, if people eat 2, 3, 4 servings of vegetables and fruits a day, they are way ahead of their friends and workmates. That said, don't stop there. I think that we should include as much vegetables and fruits and obviously plant-based foods overall as we can.
At this point, it's pretty clear that eating more whole plant-based foods, especially fruits and vegetables, can do good things for our long-term health. But one plant food in particular needs a deeper conversation. It's a cornerstone of many plant-based diets and the top source of protein for millions of people. Yet in spite of this, or maybe because of it, soy is often vilified.
Some people say that soy is a superfood packed with protein, isoflavones, and other beneficial nutrients. Others claim it promotes cancer, causes early puberty in children, and leads to hormone disruption. So what's the truth?
So another area in this whole plant-based world that's been very confusing, and still is very confusing for a lot of people today, is soy. Because they discovered that soy products contain a phytochemical called phytoestrogens, there was the concern that by eating too much soy, we would be getting too much estrogen. And with the understanding that, when there's an increased amount of estrogen, it increases the risk of estrogen-sensitive cancers like ovarian cancer and breast cancer, prostate cancer. So the research world took that kind of early research, not conclusive, not randomized controlled trials, but this was early research based on assumptions, and demonized soy. Soy, feminizes men. Soy gives men man boobs, right? Soy increases the risk of cancer. And so many people, for those reasons, were afraid of consuming soy products, not thinking to look at the research that even just came out of Japan historically that consumes a lot of soy. They had low rates of breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and samurai warriors and strong men that were not feminized by eating soy products. That, again, got spread publicly and through gyms and bro science and lots of places where people began to be fearful of consuming soy. The good news is research continues, and they've identified that there are actually 2 receptors in our body for estrogen, E1 and E2. And they discovered that the phytoestrogens actually bind to the E2 receptor. And when it binds the E2, it turns off the E1, so it actually reduces the effect of estrogen in the body. Because it reduces the estrogen effect, it actually is protective against breast cancer, ovarian cancer, prostate cancer, and protects testosterone in men. A cup of edamame is almost 20 grams of protein, lots of phytoestrogens, and a perfect opportunity for people to get, a great protein source with fiber and phytoestrogens that are protective in every way. You get the whole food, and then you get the entire effect of the soy with the fiber compared to a piece of meat. 20 grams of protein, steak versus soy, is a vast difference. The 20 grams of protein in the steak come packaged with inflammatory molecules, Nu-5GC, heme iron, endotoxin, saturated fat, acrylamides when you grill it, and has this damaging effect on the entire body, causing inflammation, disrupting the microbiome, creating TMAO, this whole downstream effect. But you eat your 20 grams of protein from your soy, and it affects every system in your body positively in 4 hours. and you got all your protein that you needed. So there's nothing better than soy products and plants to meet that protein need.
In 2020, Dr. Messina published a really great meta-analysis that looked at 417 human studies because soy could potentially be what we call an endocrine disruptor. It behaves like estrogen in some places and not in others, and maybe this is going to have deleterious effects. And their conclusion was, in point of fact, soy is not an endocrine disruptor in any way, with thyroid, with cancers, with semen levels in men, fertility and ovulation in women, and even no negative effects in children.
We've just heard how the myths about soy being harmful have been pretty thoroughly debunked by research. In reality, soy is a nutritional powerhouse. It's rich in high-quality protein, fiber, and heart-healthy fats, and it even contains compounds that can help protect against certain types of cancer. Studies show that soy consumption is linked to lower rates of breast and prostate cancer, better bone health, and improved cardiovascular function. And despite the fears about disrupting hormones, the truth is that soy's phytoestrogens may actually help to balance estrogen levels rather than disrupt them.
It's a great example of how misinformation can spread, leaving people unnecessarily fearful about a food that might actually help them thrive. And soy isn't alone. There's another plant food that has been the subject of a lot of controversy: gluten. In recent years, we've seen a huge wave of people cutting it out of their diets, believing it's a major cause of everything from weight gain to brain fog. Now, some people, up to 2% of the population, have celiac disease, and they should absolutely not eat gluten. But what about the other 98%?
There's been tremendous confusion about gluten, and I think probably about 10 years ago was kind of the height of the gluten frenzy. I can't remember, was it Wheat Belly, or there was a popular book that came out that, ascribed every ill to wheat and gluten, and it became way overstated. So gluten is not the mother of all evils. It's an important part of most people's diet. Wheat, barley, rye, more ancient wheats, farro, etc., have gluten. And so it's been a traditional part of the diet. Now, that being said, and if you remove it, you end up restricting your diet in really important big ways. Your diet becomes more restrictive, and if we're talking about restricting other things too, my concern is that it becomes really restrictive, maybe too much so. But there's a certain portion of the population that has celiac disease, and of course that's an autoimmune reaction to gluten. That's very serious and will cause major problems, anemia and osteoporosis and gut problems and skin problems and a variety of other things. And celiac disease is an autoimmune condition, also sometimes linked to other autoimmune conditions, more prevalent in other autoimmune diseases. And those folks who have that have to avoid every drop of gluten. And it's critical that they do so, and that actually treats the problem and eliminates the symptoms and problems and consequences. There's another category of people called non-celiac gluten sensitivity. There's some uncertainty about this kind of designation, though, because there are individuals who feel like they are sensitive to gluten and they notice a reaction to gluten when they consume it.
They also can get joint pain, similar symptoms, brain fog, memory issues, even if they don't have celiac disease. And for those patients, it would be a good idea to avoid gluten as well.
But interestingly, there have been studies now where they take a group of people who feel like they're gluten sensitive. They don't have celiac. They've been tested for celiac. They don't have celiac, but they still feel like they're gluten sensitive. And it turns out that a fair number of people, when challenged, so they can, for example, you can give people muffins that some of them secretly have gluten, some of them don't. And you can't tell, you don't know. When they're challenged with kind of rigorous exposure studies, it turns out that some folks who thought they were sensitive are not. Now, that being said, some of them who thought that they were sensitive are sensitive. So it's not a made-up problem. There are people who are sensitive to gluten in a variety of different ways, and it does cause them problems. It can be a little hard with food sensitivities to really untangle exactly what you're sensitive to, and I think sometimes the research suggests that it's not gluten. so much. So big picture, the vast majority of people don't need to worry about gluten. It's not a problem. It's an important part of the diet and many foods, and in many foods that we consume and can consume.
So to sum it up, gluten is a protein, and wheat, barley, and rye and whole grains are healthy for most people. If you have celiac disease, you should never eat it. And for a small but real group of people, non-celiac gluten sensitivity can cause issues like digestive discomfort, joint pain, or brain fog. But research suggests that many people who think they're sensitive to gluten may actually be reacting to something else, perhaps ultra-processed foods, or even, honestly, the placebo effect, which is very powerful, by the way.
It really is. So if you're having symptoms like headaches or digestive discomfort or brain fog, which could be associated with gluten sensitivity, and if you haven't tested positive for celiac disease, how can you know if gluten's actually a problem? Well, a good first step is to focus on eating a whole foods, plant-based diet without ultra-processed foods for a few weeks and see how you feel. If you're still having symptoms, you might try eliminating gluten for a month and seeing if that helps. If you feel better at that point, you can experiment further, perhaps avoiding it for longer or reintroducing small amounts of organic sprouted whole grains like barley or wheat to see how your body responds. The goal is to listen to your body and find what works best for you.
Now, there's another category of so-called harmful compounds that have gotten a bad reputation in recent years. They're called anti-nutrients. Anti-nutrients are plant compounds like oxalates and phytates, as well as lectins and goitrogens that can interfere with our body's ability to absorb certain essential nutrients. These substances can bind with vitamins and minerals and may be an issue for those prone to nutrient deficiencies. So naturally, there are a lot of questions about these anti-nutrients. Should you be concerned?
It's oftentimes a misconception when we think about anti-nutrients. It sounds a little scary even. Those would be things like oxalates, phytates, and lectins that we have in some of our foods. There are certainly some individuals that are a little bit more sensitive to something like oxalates that are in foods. You can think about some of our leafy greens. What those do is they enter our body and they bind to some of our other minerals. For the typical average person that's consuming a wide variety of different foods, I generally don't think about those anti-nutrients being negative overall in our diet. Sure, we're still going to have a decreased absorption of some of our micronutrients, things like calcium or iron, but we have other aspects of the foods that we're consuming that really still help the absorption of that. So whenever we're consuming a variety of a diet, then it really shouldn't be a concern unless we're eating heaps and heaps of only certain select foods.
The term anti-nutrients can be misleading. While these compounds can interfere with nutrient absorption or digestion in isolation, they're found in some of the healthiest foods on the planet. Foods like beans, lentils, spinach, kale, nuts, seeds, and whole grains are high in lectins, oxalates, or phytates. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and Brussels sprouts contain goitrogens. Yet thousands of studies consistently link these foods with incredible health benefits, from reduced risk of heart disease, cancer, and diabetes to better weight management and longer lifespans.
So how can something labeled as an anti-nutrient also be beneficial?
It's because the nutrient absorption effect of these compounds is only part of the picture. For example, lectins in beans and lentils slow carbohydrate absorption, helping to regulate blood sugar and improve weight control. Phytates, once labeled as mineral blockers, actually have powerful antioxidant properties and may reduce the risk of colon cancer. Oxalates, found in spinach and certain other greens, may raise concerns about kidney stones for some, but for most people, these greens are a terrific source of nutrients and health-promoting compounds. Whole plant foods are packed with nutrients, fiber, antioxidants, and bioactive compounds that far outweigh any potential downsides.
I understand there are also health benefits to these compounds, but if someone wants to optimize vitamin and mineral absorption, is there any way to reduce anti-nutrients to increase vitamin and mineral bioavailability?
Absolutely. Soaking and cooking beans and grains significantly reduce their phytate and lectin content, which is ideal since we typically consume them cooked anyway. While oxalates don't decrease a whole lot through cooking, opting for lower oxalate leafy greens like kale, turnip greens, collards, and mustard greens can help maximize nutrient absorption like calcium and iron. Additionally, sprouting and fermenting foods further enhance nutrient bioavailability.
What about goitrogens? Some people worry that cruciferous vegetables, which are high in goitrogens, might ultimately harm their thyroid health.
It's true that goitrogens can interfere with iodine uptake, but the amount in foods like kale or cauliflower is so small that you'd need to eat a massive quantity to see an effect. And cooking reduces goitrogens even further. Plus, these vegetables have profound health benefits. They're linked to lower risk of cancer, improved heart health, and even better brain function. So if you have a thyroid condition, then you may want to talk to your healthcare provider about whether or not it is safe for you to eat highly goitrogenic foods. But even then, the answer might actually be just to make sure you are consuming an appropriate amount of iodine.
Now, there is one case study in the medical literature of a woman who ate a case of bok choy per day. She wound up with some serious problems. So you can have too much of any one thing, even bok choy or flax seeds or water. But I think the real takeaway message here is to eat a variety of whole unprocessed plant foods. The health benefits are undeniable. Improved longevity, reduced inflammation, better heart health, stronger immunity, and lower risk of chronic diseases. Meanwhile, the real dietary culprits, sugar, processed foods, excessive animal products, and excessive sodium are far more likely to harm health.
Ocean just mentioned excessive sodium. Now, we all need some sodium, but most of us are getting way too much, and that has a significant impact on our risk of premature death from heart attack, stroke, and kidney disease. Where is all the sodium coming from?
Probably, I forget the exact number, but people get maybe about 80% or something of their sodium. It's a huge number, a huge percentage from restaurant food and prepared foods, foods that are prepared or packaged outside the house. And that, if you're eating that pretty much exclusively, you're getting a very high sodium intake. And that's what a lot of people do. They have, it's chips and then, the Chipotle and whatever. They're getting huge exposure to salt. And when they have that much salt, we know there are some people who are sensitive to salt and, associated with high blood pressure.
It's important for people to know that 75% of the sodium in our diet doesn't come from table salt that we use to cook with. It's coming from commercial food, whether it's packaged food or restaurant food. So if you want to cut back your sodium, cut back on the commercial food. It's not the table salt. And often what people will do is they'll cut back on the table salt, then they become iodine deficient, and then they'll take an iodine supplement, which can cause its own set of problems. So I focus, my emphasis is really on focusing on commercial foods in terms of minimizing sodium. Most of the sodium in our diet isn't coming from food we're making in our kitchen. It's coming from, it could be the jar of pasta sauce or the pre-made frozen burger or even bread. So anything commercial can be high in sodium. And a good rule of thumb is to look at the milligrams of sodium per serving and the calories per serving, and we want the sodium to be less than the calories per serving. And they sneak in sodium not just through salt, so it's not that they're overly salting the food, which they do too. It's all these additives like dough conditioners, stabilizers, texture modifiers. So a lot of these things don't even taste salty, but they have sodium in their chemistry. And that's why bread, even sourdough bread, which doesn't taste salty at all, is really high in sodium because of all these additives that are sneaking in.
We also know that there's some research between sodium intake and potassium intake and the balance of sodium and potassium. So oftentimes these very high processed diets are high in sodium but low in potassium. That has implications for blood vessel health and heart and high blood pressure, kidney health. Anybody with heart failure, these intakes of sodium can be highly detrimental. So, there's individuals who can have a high sodium intake for a long time and they seem to be fine. But there's a lot of people with these common problems, kidney health or, heart health, high blood pressure, where these high sodium intakes can be problematic.
So think of sodium and potassium as doing opposite things. Sodium leads to water retention, which increases our blood pressure. Potassium has the opposite effect. It helps decrease our blood pressure. So most people get too much sodium, 50% more, and most people are not getting sufficient potassium. And the reason they're not getting it is because where's potassium found? Fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, and the average person isn't consuming nearly enough of those.
What about dairy? It's been marketed as nature's most perfect food, a rich source of protein and calcium and many other nutrients. Is all this true? Is drinking cow's milk important or beneficial for human health?
I'm not a big fan of dairy. If you think about food sensitivities and allergies, dairy is the most common food sensitivity of anything we encounter in the food world. There's more people with dairy sensitivities and intolerances than any other food. And the lactose, we know, for example, that large portions of the populations are lactose intolerant. There's also just the intuitive kind of, why are we as adults and humans, eating the milk, breast milk of an animal that's, for a baby cow? It just doesn't make sense. We know, for example, that cow's milk can increase IGF-1. It's insulin-like growth factor 1 in our bodies. Makes sense. Baby cows grow fast and quickly, and they use growth factors to do that. And so when we have cow's milk, we have more growth factor in our body too. Well, we know now that IGF-1 is a risk factor for a variety of common cancers. We also have some research that it's been associated with breast cancer risk. It's not conclusive, but there are some associations and risks out there. And there's been some association with autoimmune disease across a couple of different autoimmune diseases, so whether it's type 1 diabetes or multiple sclerosis. And there's been some, observational association with more dairy. There's also, why the heck are we even eating this stuff? People say for bone health, it's the calcium, and that's not even clear. There's some research showing that increased milk consumption is not actually even good for bones. It may actually be linked to worse outcomes.
Meta-analysis show that milk consumption does not appear to protect against hip fracture risks, despite what the dairy industry will tell you, but it is associated with premature death. Milk drinkers live shorter lives than non-milk drinkers, and we think it's a breakdown product of the milk sugar lactose called galactose, which is actually what's used in laboratory animal studies to mimic aging, to accelerate aging, but we can get it in a glass of milk. In my video on milk and bones, I discussed this set of studies, following 100,000 people for up to 2 decades, finding a 60% higher risk of hip fracture among women who drank a lot of milk. The researchers suggested it might be due to the galactose, which is a breakdown product of the milk sugar lactose, based on the fact that people with high levels in their blood, because they were born with an inability to detoxify the stuff, can end up with weakened bones. But that's not all galactose can do. Galactose is what scientists use to cause accelerated aging in lab animals, since it's so successful at mimicking aging by inducing degenerative changes in the brain, heart, lungs, liver, kidney, etc. Life-shortened animals showed neurodegeneration, mental retardation, and cognitive dysfunction, diminished immune responses, and a reduction of reproductive ability. And it doesn't take much, just the human equivalent of 1 to 2 glasses worth of milk a day. However, humans aren't rodents. For example, we've known for nearly a century that you can cause cataracts in rats by feeding them lots of lactose or galactose, but the epidemiological data is mixed as to whether dairy is doing the same in people. The Swedish studies didn't just look at bone, though, but milk and mortality. More milk was associated with more death. In women, 3 glasses of milk a day was associated with nearly twice the risk of dying prematurely.
Those findings are impressive. When a team of Harvard researchers learned of the Swedish study, they initiated a larger, more detailed investigation. They wanted to find out whether the initial results were just a fluke or a genuine breakthrough.
Following more than 200,000 men and women for up to 3 decades, they confirmed the bad news. Those who consume more dairy live significantly shorter lives. Every half serving more of regular milk a day was associated with 9% increased risk of dying from cardiovascular disease, 11% increased risk of dying from cancer, and 11% increased risk of dying from all causes put together.
So we've been told that milk is important to healthy lives and to strong bones, but it's actually associated with an increased risk of hip fractures, cardiovascular disease, and premature death.
And that doesn't stop the dairy industry, however, from marketing very aggressively to our kids. In fact, in the US, milk is a non-negotiable part of both the national school lunch and breakfast programs. It's kind of astonishing that a food that many of us can hardly tolerate is so deeply woven into our children's daily meals.
We know that the USDA has a two-pronged purpose, and part of it is to make sure that farmers have a market for their products, and dairy is one of the products. As far as whether or not it's actually necessary for children, let's start there. No. Short answer, no. There are many countries all around the world where drinking milk is not a part of the culture. It's just not done. And those cultures grow up just fine. Those children grow up just fine, strong bones, strong teeth, and they have robust lives. Now, for cultures and ethnicities, races that don't handle dairy products well, it is absolutely unkind and wrong on so many levels to encourage a child to drink or eat something that makes them sick. That's just wrong. The dairy industry actually has quite a bit to say about the school meals that our children receive. They are able to lobby the USDA and for till the cows come home to get more dairy, have it be front and center in the school meal program. Every school advertises big posters on the walls, ice cream, yogurt, milk products, got milk, where's your milk mustache? There's things like this. So I researched this a little bit about what the laws actually say around dairy in schools. So if you don't mind, I'll just read this part. There is a federal law that forbids schools participating in the National School Lunch Program from interfering with the sale or marketing of dairy milk at any time or place on school grounds or at school-sponsored events, which is basically a restriction of our right to free speech. Federal school meals programs like the National School Lunch Program require that dairy milk be offered at every meal, directing schools not to offer children water before milk in the lunch line. If that isn't just an outright clear example of the position that milk holds in our school lunch program, our school food programs, I don't know what is. And again, that it can so drastically impact a large section of the population negatively is pretty chilling, actually. The Dairy Council spends millions of dollars lobbying for milk to be placed prominently in schools and to be marketed to children. I just looked at the International Dairy Foods Association website. Starting in 2025 to 2026, they're going to do us the favor of making sure that milk products have no more than 2.5 teaspoons of sugar in each 8-ounce serving, meaning that we're not only allowing whole milk, I believe, is coming in, we're allowing added fat, and now we're going to have X amount of extra sugar in the milk products.
But what about calcium? Do we need dairy to get enough calcium and to have strong bones?
Overall, I want you to get your calcium from leafy greens, from your kales and your arugulas and your spinach and your Swiss chard and your bok choy. And you'll probably get more than enough. And do your weight-bearing exercise. There's no way around it that that's necessary. As much as hopping up and down 5 minutes a week in a recent athlete study showed it improved bone health.
So we've seen that bovine dairy isn't the super healthy food that it's been made out to be. But that doesn't mean we should ignore our calcium needs, especially for those at higher risk of osteoporosis, like postmenopausal women.
That's right, Ocean. As we discussed in episode 1, while a whole foods plant-based diet can provide plenty of calcium through foods like tofu, leafy greens, almonds, and even fortified plant-based milks, some people, particularly postmenopausal vegan women, may need a little extra support. Research suggests that unless we're sure we're getting at least 1,200 milligrams of calcium per day, it may be wise to take a small supplement, even as little as 150 milligrams of calcium twice a day, along with a bit of vitamin D and vitamin K2. These nutrients work together to enhance calcium absorption and ensure it reaches our bones rather than accumulating in our arteries. Prioritizing a food-first approach remains key, as whole foods naturally provide a range of nutrients essential for bone health and overall wellness. That said, in some cases, a small supplement can help complement a well-rounded diet.
And of course, strong bones aren't just about calcium. Weight-bearing exercise like walking, hiking, or strength training sends signals to your body to keep bones strong and dense. It's one of the most effective ways to prevent osteoporosis and fractures as we age.
So while we don't need dairy to build strong bones, we do need a combination of smart nutrition, movement, and for some people, targeted supplementation.
There's a fascinating debate brewing about fish consumption. Some studies suggest that people who include fish in their diets not only live longer, but also enjoy fewer chronic diseases. For example, the ongoing Adventist Health Study has so far found that vegetarians outlive omnivores, vegans outlive vegetarians, and pescatarians, people who avoid all animal products except fish, seem to have the longest life expectancy of all. They beat the vegans by just a smidge. Plus, a 2019 journal review revealed that children of mothers who ate seafood weekly scored significantly higher in verbal IQ and overall academics.
That really makes you wonder what's driving these benefits. Is it the long-chain omega-3 fatty acids like EPA and DHA that are in turn boosting brain and cardiovascular health? Or are fish eaters simply cutting down on red meat and processed foods? Perhaps they lead generally healthier lifestyles, exercising more and smoking less. Or do fish eaters tend to be more affluent and perhaps their improved longevity is tied to that in some way?
There's a lot more for us to learn. It's clear that fish consumption is linked to positive outcomes when compared to the modern industrialized diet. What about if we compare it to a whole food plant-based dietary pattern?
Fish intake compared to Oreo intake or Spam intake, fish is probably pretty good. And it has some benefits. If you compare fish with broccoli intake, fish is not so good. So you get these studies that are confusing. In some studies, people who have fish are healthier, and but they're also probably eating better overall. It's not like you're planning dinner and you're choosing either fish or broccoli. Most people are choosing fish or some other meat, right? So they have less red meat and they're eating more fish, they're healthier. Is that because of the fish? Is it because they're having more fruits and vegetables? It's really hard to untangle. But I think of it as all relative. There's some problems in terms of its heavy metal consumption, mercury consumption, and so forth that are problematic. Its lack of fiber, and so forth. Fish consumption is, I think, unnecessary. Let's say I would establish and say that's seems pretty certain that we certainly don't need to have fish in our diet.
Many health influencers are pointing to the omega-3 fatty acids in fish, particularly DHA and EPA, as playing a crucial role in reducing risk of cardiovascular disease and dementia. This has spawned a huge business. The global fish oil market is now worth more than $13 billion per year. Is that a good thing?
The omega-3 story is an interesting journey. So many years ago, this was the start of the fish oil recommendation. There was a study that came out called the DART-1 trial. And they had been studying some indigenous people, the Eskimos up north, and in a small sample found that, the people that were eating fish had lower heart disease rates. So they published this very small trial, got picked up by the media, like it often does, and broadcast to the world. Eating fish reduces cardiovascular disease. Everybody bought in, eating more fish. Supplement manufacturers grabbed a hold of it, started producing fish oil and advocating for fish oil to reduce cardiovascular disease. At the same time, the researchers began to ask themselves, is this actually correct, knowing the limitations of their first study? So they produced the second trial called the DART-2 trial, and they did a much larger, more robust trial, better methods. And at the conclusion of that trial, they found that fish oil has no benefit in reducing cardiovascular disease.
Interesting.
But by then, the horses were out. The population had believed that fish oil actually would reduce cardiovascular disease, and the second trial got no publicity. So from that time forward, there's been this ongoing belief that we can take fish oil and reduce our risk of cardiovascular disease. But not thinking about the root cause, which is unhealthy diet with animal products and processed food, stress, inactivity, and poor sleep, the lifestyle. Everybody thinks taking a supplement fixes it. The other part of this then that became another advocation for fish oil was they began to see that people had high inflammatory levels because of the unhealthy lifestyle. To fix it, they recommended fish oil. And so when they look at the balance of inflammatory fatty acids, omega-6s, to anti-inflammatory omega-3s, they found the average American was somewhere between 20 to 40 of the unhealthy to 1 of the omega-3s. And so science tried to fix it by saying, let's add more fish oil to try and overcome this part of it. So you're taking some fish oil to try and beat this. But what didn't they do? They didn't ask, well, where are all these omega-6s coming from? Which comes from animal fat, vegetable oils, and processed food. And so rather than addressing the root cause, which is reducing animal products and oils, they tried to bump it up by taking fish oils. One of the problems with fish oils is that sometimes they're rancid as a supplement. Another problem is that they contain a lot of heavy metals and toxins today because we've polluted our oceans.
It turns out that you can go to the most remote oceans on the planet and they're loaded with PCBs, dioxins, heavy metals, organophosphates, microplastics, nuclear fallout, things you would never want to consume in large quantities. And it turns out that over-the-counter fish oil is actually largely contaminated with heavy metals from the fish themselves, along with many other things. And it's not recommended actually by any of the professional society guidelines.
And the last thing, which is extremely important, it's not sustainable. We are overfishing our oceans. We're depleting fisheries faster than we can imagine. And so trying to fix this inflammatory problem, trying to prevent cardiovascular disease by depleting one of the most important resources on Earth by taking a pill when it's really changing your plate is insanity.
What about algae-based forms of EPA, DHA, and the other long-chain omega-3 fatty acids? Do they have benefit, particularly for people who don't eat fish?
People who don't consume, fish or, seafood tend to be lower. They have lower levels of omega-3 fatty acids. However, DHA and EPA are derived from algae. That's the source. And the story is, I think, some engineers who were creating a model of human beings going to Mars when they were brainstorming to come up with highlighting the important food factors that human beings can't live without, omega-3 fatty acids was one of them. And they did some research and they found out that it actually is derived from algae. So thank goodness for technology, we can actually extract DHA and EPA from algae, and it is available for people who don't want to consume fish or who are on a plant-based diet and they don't want to, get it from fish directly. And I think it's better because you kind of bypass all of the other toxins that might be available in fish as well. So yes, algae-based omega-3 fatty acids is a great replacement, and it's essentially the same as fish oil for people who don't consume fish.
So if somebody did want to add some additional EPA for their brain, it would just come from algae, which is the original source of the fish oil in the beginning. The fish are eating algae, accumulating that in their tissues, and that's where the fish oil has its omega-3. So we just go back to the original source. It's always back to the beginning, right?
Back to the source.
It's always back to the source. That's right.
Studies have found that up to a third of the fish oil and algal oil-based omega-3 supplements are rancid. So if you're gonna take an algae-derived supplement, and there's some good reason to do so, you wanna make sure it's fresh. Some tips for avoiding rancidity are: look at expiration dates to make sure they're as far away as possible. Only buy from stores that keep them in a fridge. Buy on auto ship direct from the manufacturer. Go for unflavored varieties and don't consume any that taste or smell off. And once it gets home, aim to consume it within a few months and to keep it as much as possible in the fridge.
Let's not overlook the remarkable benefits of omega-3 rich plant foods too. These include flaxseed meal, walnuts, chia seeds, and hemp seeds, all of which are loaded with the short-chain omega-3 fatty acid, ALA. In fact, US guidelines recommend that women aim for 1.1 grams of ALA daily, and men aim for 1.6 grams of ALA daily.
Exactly. Even though only a small portion of ALA converts into DHA and EPA, its role is indispensable. And these nutrient-dense foods all deliver way more than just the ALA. They also bring along a bounty of protein and vitamins and minerals and fiber, and in the case of flax, also lignans and phytoestrogens, which makes them wonderful additions to your diet.
Okay, now let's talk about the number one question that any plant-based eater is going to face. Where do you get your protein?
Yep, we hear that one a lot. Now, we've already discussed this a bit in episodes 1 and 6, but it's important, so let's take a deeper dive.
We do know that on a plant-based diet, you can still get adequate protein. As Americans in general, we're consuming too much protein to begin with, and we actually don't need quite as much as that we're having in our supply. And it doesn't need to be in all of our granola bars, our cereals, this, that, packed in. But we actually can get them from very whole food, natural sources. Things like you mentioned, beans are a great source of protein. We even get protein from plant-based vegetables. Things like broccoli can actually have protein in them. Other really high, great sources of protein could be our tofu, tempeh. Those are great sources that can be combined in a variety of different ways in a variety of different dishes to really make a complete and total meal. We've also had a lot of misconceptions that some of our plant-based foods don't contain all the essential amino acids that we need for our bodies. That's been debunked. All of our plant proteins and plant-based sources of protein have all the essential amino acids that we need. They have them in different amounts, but when we're consuming a wide variety of different foods, then that really shouldn't be a concern for us.
It's a misconception that plant foods are lacking in essential amino acids. So if you look at the rationale for that, if someone were to eat only corn and nothing but corn, some of their essential amino acids would be too low. Okay, the essential amino acids, the amino acid you have to consume in food because your body can't make it. But corn has all the essential amino acids. It's just that the balance, there's a one or two that might be a little bit low. But if you're eating a varied diet, the amino acids more than balance out.
Only 4% of any age group today is meeting the basic recommendation of fiber. Everybody wants to talk about protein, but we do not have a protein deficiency in the world today. You won't go to the hospital and find a protein deficiency unit. I've never seen that. Fiber deficiency, all day long. And the requirements are like 25 to 35 grams, which are very low compared to the studies that show that we really get maximal protection at 70 grams of fiber every day, just plant-based diet. So we begin to look at what makes the body healthy, what optimizes the systems of the body. It's plants. It's fiber, it's phytochemicals, it's polyphenols. And when we eat plants, we get more than enough protein. The research shows 70% more protein than we actually need in a plant-based diet. We get all the amino acids that we need.
On average, most people need about 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. But requirements vary. As we age, particularly after the age of 65, our bodies may benefit from up to 1.2 grams per kilogram per day to help preserve lean body mass. And active people, especially endurance and strength training athletes, might need between 1.2 and 2 grams of protein per kilogram per day for peak recovery and performance. But if you exercise a lot, then you're already getting plenty of calories, which will help you meet your protein needs.
Now, let me shed a little more light on this at the risk of being geeky for Americans who are not used to thinking in the metric system. I want to lead you in a quick math calculation. So in general, protein requirements are tied to healthy body weight. This means that if you're obese, you may not need to base your requirements on your current weight, but rather on what you would weigh if you were not obese. If your healthy weight is 150 pounds, then that's going to be 68 kilograms. If it's 120 pounds, that's going to be 54 kilograms. If you're over the age of 65 and your goal is 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, then if you weigh 120 pounds, you're going for 65 grams a day. If you weigh 150 pounds, you're going for 82 grams a day. Now, if you eat 2,000 calories per day, which by the way is quite a bit less than most Americans are consuming, and if you're getting 15% of your calories from protein, which is pretty typical overall across the plant kingdom, then that means you'll be getting 300 calories from protein in a day. Now, there are 4 calories in a gram of protein. So 1/4 of 300 is 75. This means that if you're eating 2,000 calories in a day, which by the way is quite a bit less than the average American consumes, and if 15% of your calories are coming from protein, which again is a pretty typical ratio in the plant kingdom, then you'll be getting 75 grams of protein per day. And again, if you weigh 120 pounds and you're over age 65, you might need 65. And if you eat as many calories as the average American does, which is 3,600 in a day, then you might be getting 135 grams of protein per day.
Now that's all based on getting 15% of your calories from protein, which is very doable on a plant-based diet. But the key thing to remember is that there are a lot of calories, but there's no protein in bottled oils and in added sugars. There's very little protein in white flour. So if you are a vegan consuming a lot of ultra-processed packaged vegan food, or if you aren't consuming enough total calories, then protein could start to be a concern. That's another reason to base your diet around whole plant-based foods.
Yeah, it is, Nicole. But still, a lot of people think that animal protein sources are superior. Are they?
Is the type of protein you choose is important. So think about it. For example, when you eat protein, it's not just protein. If it's a whole food, like for example, if you're eating a protein powder, yes, it's just concentrated protein. But when you're eating food, if you're eating a steak, that has protein, but it has a different effect on your metabolism and gut health than if you're eating, for example, hemp seeds or tofu, right? So one must decide, okay, do I want to choose the steak or the tofu? And here's the main difference. If you're choosing steak, which has protein, there's also something else called saturated fat that comes with that steak. Saturated fat has been linked to production of a lot of bile acids, which in your gut get through an enzymatic reaction, get converted to secondary bile acids and can be damaging to the gut. Furthermore, the gut cells are connected by these proteins called the tight junctions. The tight junctions get severed with a high saturated fat diet. Whereas if you're choosing tofu for your nutrition needs and protein, you're basically getting a wholesome food with a lot of protein and not the same effects as steak because there's very little, if any, saturated fat in tofu.
Edamame is another great source of protein. I put that on a salad. I mean, when I have a salad, it's not, you think it's not just lettuce and tomato and some vinaigrette. I mean, it's edamame and chickpeas and hemp seeds and blueberries and walnuts and, kale and arugula and, on and on and on. It really is a symphony of nutrients, if you will.
In our first episode, I shared how my breakfast smoothie alone delivers 42 grams of protein, thanks to a blend of unsweetened soy milk, peanut butter, hemp seeds, and a bit of fruit. It's not only delicious, but also gets my day off to a filling start.
I love that, Ocean. I always encourage incorporating protein-rich plant-based foods into every meal, like hearty beans, lentils, or tofu. And tempeh is a favorite of mine. It's bursting with protein, fiber, iron, and calcium.
And don't overlook whole grains, like buckwheat, quinoa, and amaranth. They're surprising protein powerhouses too. What's also wonderful is that these foods come loaded with essential minerals like calcium, iron, zinc, and magnesium that work together to support overall health.
Let's look at some of these essential minerals. We already talked about calcium. What about zinc?
Zinc is a mineral, but we don't really need too much of it. We can find it in a variety of different foods that are plant-based. You can find them in beans, soybeans. You can find them in whole grains, in different nuts, pine nuts, also different seeds, hemp seeds. So you really just need a little bit. So again, if you're eating that wide variety of food, I don't think you need to supplement with them.
What about selenium?
Selenium, another mineral that we don't need much of. And if you are being specific, we can have one Brazil nut, gives you almost twice the amount you need in a day, or the average American needs. One bowl of pasta actually will get you about almost to how much you need in a day. So you can get them from baked beans and different types of grains. So again, selenium is one of those, if you're eating a wide variety of food, you shouldn't have to worry about.
What's your take on iodine?
Iodine is a mineral and we need it. And the reason we need it is our thyroid gland uses iodine to produce thyroid hormone. Now, we need a little bit of iodine, but not too much. And the reason I say that is if we get too much iodine, it shuts down our thyroid gland. If we get too little, that shuts down our thyroid gland.
Kind of a Goldilocks principle.
Yes. So just the right amount. It's important for people to know iodine is found in a wide variety of foods, but the World Health Organization has found that one of the best ways to ensure that people get sufficient iodine is through iodized salt. And the reason that's important is when we consume just plain old iodized table salt and we use it in our cooking, we're getting just a little bit of iodine, just the right amount. I generally do not recommend iodine supplements for the reason that I said it shuts down the thyroid gland. Mm-hmm. So it's better to just get it naturally through our food, and iodized table salt is a good way to do that.
Let's talk about iron. Nicole, can you tell us about the difference between heme and non-heme iron, and how do we know if we're getting too much or too little?
Great question, Ocean. Heme iron, which is abundant in animal products, is absorbed much more efficiently than non-heme iron, which is primarily found in plants and in smaller quantities in animals. However, too much iron absorption isn't always beneficial. Excess heme iron has been linked to higher risk of heart disease, neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, liver damage, and certain types of cancer. And over-relying on iron supplements can trigger oxidative stress, gastrointestinal distress, and potential organ damage.
So excessive iron can be a major problem. It's linked to increased risk of diseases that kill millions of people. And you're far more likely to have excessive iron if you're getting heme iron from animal products, because heme iron more or less forces its way into your bloodstream, whereas your body tends to titrate its absorption of non-heme iron up or down depending on how much your body actually needs. So getting iron from plant foods may be optimal. But Nicole, are there some people who need to pay attention in order to be sure they're getting enough?
Yeah, so certain groups of people like menstruating women, vegetarians, and athletes may need extra iron. If your blood tests indicate that your iron levels are low, your healthcare provider may encourage you to take a supplement or to eat meat as a source of heme iron. But in reality, there are wonderful ways to get your iron needs met from the plant kingdom. Nature offers robust plant sources rich in iron like legumes, whole grains, dark leafy greens, and dried fruit. Pairing these with vitamin C and carotene-rich foods dramatically boost iron absorption. Even allium vegetables like garlic, onions, and shallots help with iron absorption. What's wonderful is that foods that naturally pair well together end up being an iron powerhouse meal. For example, bean tacos are high in iron. Then they're topped with vitamin C and carotene-rich tomato-based salsa. Then if you top your tacos with chopped onion, you add even more iron-enhancing properties.
Fascinating and delicious too, I might add. So an iron supplement's probably only helpful if your blood tests show you're low in iron, and if eating iron and vitamin C-rich foods isn't getting you where you need to be, or it's not helping you fast enough. Now, speaking of supplements, what other ones should we be considering for optimal health, and why?
The one that I kind of always go back to is B12, as even if you're vegetarian or if you're over the age of 50, I recommend everyone take a B12 supplement. As we age, we stop producing as much hydrochloride in our stomach. And so and that's what we need to digest B12. So even if you're an omnivore and you're eating enough B12 in your diet, sometimes you just can't even absorb it. So I do recommend a B12 supplement for everyone over the age of 50.
The big three would be a B12 for stroke risk, vitamin D for stroke risk, and omega-3, which can be done through food, but there's some very convenient and inexpensive ways to do them as a supplement.
With aging, it's important, again, make sure your vitamin B12 is sufficient. There may be some benefit, obviously, with omega-3 fatty acids from food first, and then if it's a little low, perhaps an algae supplement, and then a little bit of iodine. And that can come from either seaweed or an iodine supplement just to support the thyroid. But in those ways, by ensuring a healthy, whole food, plant-based diet from a variety of plants with lots of greens and chia seeds and flax seeds and healthy sources, and of course, lentils and beans. You have to eat lentils and beans. They're good for everything. I really believe that's enough to be sufficient and to have a healthy, vibrant body well into your 90s and even 100.
At a biological level, you are the only you on this planet. Your genes, metabolism, age, activity level, health history, even your gut microbiome all influence how you process food and how you respond to food. No two people digest, absorb, or use nutrients in exactly the same way.
And yet, for all our differences, we still have fundamental things in common. We all need essential vitamins, minerals, proteins, and healthy fats to thrive. So are there universal principles that do apply for just about all of us?
Most of the kind of personalized nutrition is scammy nonsense. I mean, there are differences between people. Some people are lactose intolerant, some not. Some metabolize caffeine faster than others. Some people are gluten intolerant. Some people have peanut allergies, et cetera, et cetera. But in general, good foods are good for everybody. Bad foods are bad for everybody. It's just a matter of degree. So some people, the same good food is even better than than other people. And some bad foods are particularly bad for some people. But it's not like bad foods are good for some people. Good foods are, we like to hear good news about our bad habits. And so we'd love to be like, oh, well, because of your, unique biochemical, whatever, genetic signature, you should be eating X. It's just not how biology works. And now if, getting a cheek swab or a blood sample and some fancy digital readout gets you to do healthy things that you wouldn't otherwise do, great. If I get a swab and say, based on your unique genetics, you should eat dark green leafy vegetables. And you're like, oh, okay. And you start eating greens. Well, then, yeah, you could justify the cost of some $1,000 test, but it's like, you could have just eat your grains, but people don't like generic advice. And the industry knows this. People want personalized advice. And so they'll pay through the teeth for it. And anything people will pay through the teeth for, oh my God, businesses will jump up and claim that they have some kind of, but it's just really not true. And so I did a video on it, on personalized nutrition, based on your, genetics, you may be like 3% higher or lower risk for colorectal cancer. But so if you're 3% higher risk, what should you do? Eat healthy. If you're 3% lower risk, what should you do? Eat healthy. It's like, it doesn't really make any sense to do anything different. Unless it's a motivator. Unless that's the only way you're going to eat healthy, then okay, go for it.
I think every day we are coming out with new research, and it is really challenging for consumers and patients and clients to be able to sort throughout all of that new nutrition information, especially when it's quite conflicting. I think what it comes down to is remembering, number one, Even though those headlines might really praise one thing one day and demonize it the next day, at the end of the day, most diets probably agree on a lot of things. And most of that is what a plant-based diet is. That a diet that is high in fruits and vegetables, 100% whole grains, that's devoid of animal products, and is generally low in our processed foods that are high in added sugars, salts, and added fats. When we have that diet in general, it's going to be health promoting.
Our bodies are so infinitely wise in the way that our bodies manage nutrition. And then we have this entire microbiome of 100 trillion bacteria and archaea and protozoa and viruses, this entire community that lives in our gut that also manages some of those nutrients and produces some of those nutrients. A healthy microbiome actually helps to balance the number of calories that you're absorbing from your food. The bacteria will, and I don't even think we understand how this happens, but they will absorb a percentage of the calories from the food and remove some of the other calories. They help to balance the amount of estrogen that's reabsorbed and excrete some of the other estrogen. They balance cholesterol reabsorption. They produce vitamins like vitamin K and even some vitamin B12. And our gut produces those beautiful short-chain fatty acids, which are the byproducts of the bacteria digesting the fiber from the food that our bodies wouldn't even digest. And so these byproducts then circulate throughout our entire body, turning off inflammatory switches, circulating to our brain, enhancing cognition, turning off appetite, turning on genes that grow blood vessels into damaged tissue, this host of benefits from this healthy microbiome. And our body stores so many nutrients as well. And so between the balance of our body's wisdom and the healthy microbiome, there's this optimization that occurs with aging that I think we really don't understand or have not even studied yet.
In today's era of often overwhelming and often conflicting nutrition advice online and in the media, one clear takeaway stands out from our experts. Embrace a diverse array of whole plant foods.
And that diversity is really key. There isn't any one single food that we should all be eating lots and lots of. We need a diversity of whole plant foods to truly create a symphony of wellness.
For me, my take-home point is we have to make sure that we're diversifying. And so when we diversify our food intake, that means I'm having legumes, I'm having green leafy vegetables, I'm having the fiber, I'm having the micronutrients, the phytonutrients, I'm having my berries, I'm having my seeds, that these are the things I will begin to make sure I get in the adequate amounts of nutrients. And so it becomes important to pay attention to that. And perhaps I do have to pay attention to some of the macronutrients a bit more as I get older, but that's through diversification.
One way to kind of simplify this with RDAs and looking at those basic needs, one is to understand the RDAs were really created to advocate against diseases of deficiency, not for optimized health. And much of that came out of the fact that people were eating unhealthy diets based on processed food and animal products. So the safest way to meet all of your RDAs is to eat a wide variety of plants every single day. You'll meet all the RDAs for minerals, for vitamins, with the exception of vitamin B12 and vitamin D. RDAs for protein, easily met with a wonderful, robust, whole food plant-based diet. Dietary fat from wonderful sources, avocados, a handful of nuts or seeds every day. And carbohydrates. People are afraid of carbohydrates, the no-carb thing, carbs are bad, but complex carbohydrates in plants, in a plant-based diet, is actually 70% carbohydrates are the fuel of the body. It's what runs the brain, it's what runs the heart, it's what runs the muscles, and so you have the correct energy supply for the body. So you get everything you need from a plant-based diet. An animal-based diet or the Western diet, you obviously are going to have deficiencies. Minerals, vitamins, phytochemicals, fiber, and so those people, the people on a Western diet, actually need to be concerned about the RDAs. When you're eating enough calories from a plant-based diet, as you scale it developmentally and based upon your activity levels, as the calorie content goes up, so do the micronutrients and macronutrients. And it perfectly scales to the needs of that of your life based on where you are. Pregnancy calories go up and supplies all the necessary needs. So it makes it simple. We don't have to chase things with lab tests.
Right.
We just create a big, beautiful, bright plate with lots of fruits and vegetables, trying to get 30 to 40 different plants in a week. We eat to be able to go and be and do, and to share our gift and engage in life. And our life is not about our food. And if we overcomplicate nutrition, if we're, nobody can measure their food every day. And it's not a sustainable way to think about food. Measuring protein, measuring, minerals and antioxidants. And so that's the beauty of a plant-based diet. It meets and is all of our needs and is sufficient in every way. So we don't have to think about it. We enjoy this beautiful meal. It fulfills every need that we have. And then we can just move forward in life. When we stress about what we're eating, it actually creates inflammation, disrupts our microbiome, causes issues, activates our hunger centers to crave carbohydrates, disrupts our sleep. So even, trying to do what's right or stressing to do what's right in food can counteract the very benefit of what you're trying to do with food. So it's moving peacefully into a whole food plant-based diet, realizing it's going to supply everything that you need.
If you look at the literature, there are hundreds of randomized controlled trials showing us that a whole food plant-based diet or a plant predominant diet is cardioprotective. It prevents colon polyps and colon cancer. It lowers your, hemoglobin A1C and is good for your endocrine system and to prevent obesity and diabetes. I mean, really, we don't really have to go far to get the literature and the science. It's right there.
My patients get healthy as they pursue a truly healthy plant-based diet and healthy lifestyle changes, enough sleep, a daily walk, etc. And to see people get healthy right in front of your eyes is one of the greatest joys any physician could desire. So there's, they say once you look behind the curtain, you can't pretend you don't know what's behind the curtain, and there's nothing else to do at this point outside of answer the highest calling as a physician, which is what I've been trying to do. And now we're trying to reach young medical students with that message. And so that's been the focus of my career in recent years through our Moving Medicine Forward initiative.
It's stunning how effective food can be. It has the power to heal lives, disrupt patterns of chronic illness, save families and even nations from medical cost-related bankruptcy, and enhance the well-being of entire communities.
And it's empowering to know it doesn't end there. Every food choice you make has ripple effects impacting people, communities, and ecosystems around the world. When you stop supporting companies whose practices don't align with your values and instead choose food and farmers that contribute to a healthier, more ethical, and sustainable world, you become a part of the solution. Knowing you're making a difference can truly feel rewarding.
In our next episode, we'll dive deeper into where our food comes from and why it matters more than you may have ever imagined. Some of what you'll discover is truly eye-opening. Every bite we take is shaping our health. And as you'll see, it's also shaping the health of life on Earth. No matter where you come from or what you've been through, the simple truth is that you are meant to thrive. You deserve boundless energy, a clear mind, and a lean and healthy body. You deserve to feel confident and clear about what you eat and why. The Food Revolution Summit is packed with insights, and trying to catch and absorb all of them in 1 week can be hard. That's why we created the Empowerment Package. With your Empowerment Package, you can own the entire summit, plus all the transcripts and loads of bonus materials for life. Absorb this world-changing material at a pace that's comfortable and easy for you. Join the movement. Support the food revolution. Buy your Empowerment Package today. Thanks so much for sharing in that fascinating episode. To express your opinions on what you're hearing and to find out what others are saying, post and engage in the comment section on the broadcast page. You can always refresh the comments to see the latest ones using the button provided there. Holly said, "Hello, Ocean. Thanks so much for reading and addressing my question online yesterday. I was so excited that you saw it and shared your thoughts. God bless you and your team for the wonderful, enlightening information you're sharing and the community you're building here." Thank you, Holly. Thank you for being a part of this wonderful community that we are building here together. Reading the comments, feeling the energy and the response here is so heartwarming. Of course, there's so many people engaging. It can be a bit overwhelming, but I'm spending as much time as I can engaging because I feel so lit up by all the stories and all the inspiration and all the gratitudes and all the vulnerability that's being shared. So grateful to everybody for making this such a safe, supportive, and healing community. Kelly said, "I'm 62 and I've lost 40 pounds on GLP-1. I still have more to go. I need today's seminar to figure out why I can't figure out what nutrients I'm deficient in. My lips are getting chapped. Hydration is difficult, but I'm working on it. I can't wait to add a plant-based diet to continue my weight loss journey and become more healthy. I received mixed messages about needing more protein, but nothing about the nutrients that I desperately need. This summit has been a dream for me. Thanks for everything you and the FRN team do." Well, Kelly, thank you for asking, and congratulations on releasing 40 pounds so far. It sounds like you're making progress and getting benefit from the GLP-1 medication. And as you probably know, it's especially important to focus on nutrient density, getting as many vitamins and minerals and fiber and phytonutrients as possible with every bite, because these medications often curb appetite, which means you're eating much less food overall. And that can lead, as you're discussing, to missing out on essential nutrients if you're not very intentional. Some people run into trouble by filling up on protein bars or processed snacks or very low volume foods without enough fruits, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains. A whole foods plant-powered diet can help you get the critical nutrients your body needs to thrive, even with fewer calories. So you want to pay attention to hydration, as you mentioned. You want to eat healthy fats like avocados and nuts and seeds, and make sure you're getting the omega-3s that you need. And you want to choose colorful, nutrient-rich foods that can go a long way towards protecting your health on your journey. You know, one of the things that GLP-1s can do is help you break free from food addiction so you can make more conscious choices. But you have to use that freedom to make those choices. And if you do that, you can actually build healthy habits. And some people may find that eventually they can go off the GLP-1s and still find that they're able to maintain healthy diets because they've got that groove going. But if you just eat less of the same foods, then you'll have the same problems if ever you go off the medications. Tamsin said, "I am a carer for my 2 autistic children and a friend with severe mental health issues. I have been really working hard to avoid missing a single episode of the amazing summit amongst all the demands on my time. I was doing so well, but just failed to get the last part of episode 6 before you removed it for today's wonderful offering. Is there a way of getting a couple extra hours access to episode 6? I've been making diligent notes to share with my loved ones, and I don't want to miss a bit. I think my own neurodivergence is making it especially hard to know I have a missing section." Tamsin, thank you so much for reaching out and sharing your journey. And first of all, bless you in caring for your autistic children. I'm a dad. I have identical twin sons. Our twin sons are on the autism spectrum. We say they are awesomely autistic. River and Bodhi are 24 years old. They are amazing. They are thriving. They're actually now the happiest they've ever been in their lives. And it's been quite a journey. So my heart goes out to you and my support goes out to you as you undertake this journey. And we want to make it a little bit easier for you to access all of the Summit for Life and to catch whatever you missed. So we'll be gifting you with an empowerment package. Our team will follow up with you. Congratulations. And I know you will put it to good use. So you'll have all the episodes for life, all the expert interviews if you want to dive a little bit deeper, all the recipes, more than $1,500 worth of bonuses. Congratulations. And also I want to let folks know, for those of you who have struggled with episodes being cut off as you're watching replays, so sorry about that. The thing is that we have replays every day after an episode ends until we open up the floor for the next day's broadcast, which is usually around 7 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. Eastern time. And at that point, we have to flip the page so that people who are arriving there for that day's broadcast see the right experience rather than seeing the day before and getting confused. So that's kind of the way it works. It does create a time window, but hopefully you all can take advantage of it while it's free, and also those who want to and are able to can invest in the empowerment package so you can own it all for life. And please know, whenever you get an empowerment package, you are directly supporting our mission and helping us to do this, helping us spread the word and offer this summit. We love sharing it for free widely with hundreds of thousands of people around the world, and we can only do that because of all the folks who take that next step and support our mission with those purchases. So thank you all for doing so when you're able, and congratulations to Tamsin. I know you'll put it to good use. Sheila said, good morning, Ocean. Enjoying the summit. It's very educational and motivating. You mentioned you had sprouts for breakfast. Do you eat them as is, or do you enhance them with any other ingredients? Well, Sheila, thanks for asking. Personally, I like sprouts a lot, but not necessarily completely plain. So what I typically do, I'll put, we make our own homemade salad dressings, and I'll just dress them with a dressing, or sometimes I'll add some seasonings and some soy sauce or Bragg liquid aminos, nutritional yeast, maybe a little spice, and mix it up that way. There's different ways to do it, but yeah, I think that sometimes a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down, they say. So adding a little bit of oil or a little bit of sodium, a little bit of something sour, a little bit of something spicy, makes those sprouts taste a lot more appealing. And sprouts are super, super healthy foods. And if you can add something to them that makes you more likely to enjoy them and eat them, then that'll probably mean more sprouts get eaten in your home. Dorothy said, Ocean, thank you, thank you, thank you. My friend sent me information about this summit, but I ignored it, wondering why she sent me information about American food when we're in England. On day 2, curiosity got the better of me. Fantastic. I am hooked. I've learned so much from the experts. I'm only sorry I missed day 1. I lost my dad, ended a relationship, and moved to a new house in a new area where I didn't know anyone. All this took its effect on me. There were times I didn't leave the house for days. I just wanted to be left alone. I know this is depression. My handbag is so heavy, was only my umbrella and purse in it. I'm only 64. I now know it's because I've lost so much body mass muscle, and the thought of dementia, if I don't do anything about it, is scary. I got rid of all the empty calories that I was using as a crutch. Yesterday, for the first time in 5 years, I had a plate of green salad, grated carrots, and a little extra virgin olive oil. Delicious. Could you please tell us how long the reduced package price is on for? Thank you. Dorothy, thank you for being here and putting up with those of us Americans talking about American food. But truly, this is super global. We have experts from all over the world in this summit, including multiple from the UK. And, you know, the truth is that food is critical to life. And the realities, there's studies from all over the world, and they find pretty consistent data that it turns out human bodies respond to food very similarly all over the planet. So this truly is a global message, and I'm sure you're seeing that. I'm just sending you a lot of love as you reclaim your health and your fitness and your body. And may that journey continue. We're so grateful you're here. You asked about the empowerment package. It's on sale for the Summit Special 50% discount price through the end of the Summit and for one day after. So that's through end of day Thursday. For those of you thinking about it, now is a great time to get it while you can for that price. Melissa said, good morning from Phoenix, Arizona. So glad I found Food Revolution's Summit. I've enjoyed all the episodes. My sister has lupus, and I'm hoping that sharing this information with her will help with her inflammation. Is there any info related to lupus? Well, hello, Melissa. Thanks so much for asking and for being a part of this summit. And thanks for your kind heart. It's clear that you love your sister and you want to support her. And we want to support you in that. So you're totally on the right track. Every case of lupus is unique and there's no one-size-fits-all answer, but there is a lot of evidence that a whole food plant-based diet that's rich in fruits and vegetables and legumes and nuts and seeds and whole grains can bring down inflammation, can support immune balance, and can protect organ function. And research suggests that anti-inflammatory foods like leafy greens and berries, flax and chia seeds, which need to be ground, sweet potatoes, and turmeric can help calm an overactive immune system, which is a key factor in autoimmune conditions like lupus. And minimizing processed foods and refined sugars and animal products can also lower the inflammatory burden. Of course, it's essential that dietary changes are made thoughtfully and probably best in partnership with a knowledgeable healthcare professional, especially because lupus can affect the kidneys and other organs and nutritional needs can vary. But the big picture is that every nourishing and whole food meal can really be an act of love and of healing. And you're giving your sister tools that can help her move toward greater resilience and greater vitality, and that is a beautiful thing. I want to make sure to encourage you to check out the work of one of our speakers, Dr. Brooke Goldner, who wrote the book Goodbye Lupus. If you get the empowerment package, you can hear our interview with her, which I think you and your sister are going to find life-changing. It's probably worth getting the empowerment package just to be able to share that one expert interview with her. Melissa, thank you again for your compassion and your hope and your commitment to being part of this food revolution. And we're sending so much love to you and your sister. And again, Brooke Goldner's book is Goodbye Lupus, and her interview is part of the empowerment package. Jennifer said, I'm confused why algae from the ocean is not contaminated with mercury and other harmful elements that poison the fish. Well, Jennifer, thanks so much for that great question. So fish accumulate mercury and other toxins mainly because they eat other contaminated fish and are higher up on the food chain. It's a process called bioaccumulation. So you see more of the contaminants in the bigger fish, especially like swordfish and shark and even tuna. Lower amounts in the smaller fish like sardines or mackerel. Algae, on the other hand, are at the very bottom of the food chain. They don't eat anything else, and they're usually grown in clean, controlled environments like indoor tanks when they're being used for supplement production. So algae source DHA and EPA give you the essential long-chain omega-3s without the risk of heavy metal contamination that can come with fish. Tiffany said, I watched the session on cardiovascular health because I've recently been diagnosed with high blood pressure after having consistently low blood pressure my entire life. I'm trying to stay away from having to take meds and have added daily brisk walking, trying to get more sleep, etc. Do you know how long it might typically take to see a change in blood pressure after making changes? Well, Tiffany, thank you for your thoughtful question and congratulations on the steps you're already taking, literally and figuratively, for your heart health and your overall well-being. And, adding daily brisk walking, prioritizing sleep, and obviously eating whole plant foods can be exactly the kind of actions that make a real difference. So when it comes to how long it takes to see changes in blood pressure, the good news is sometimes it can happen super fast. Some studies have shown that with consistent lifestyle changes, people can start seeing measurable improvements in a matter of weeks. There are some things that can show up almost immediately, like within a meal or literally in a moment when you're doing stress reduction. You can bring your blood pressure down. And this is why a lot of people have high readings when they go to a doctor's office because they're stressed. Sometimes doctors do a second or even a third round of blood pressure tests because the second or third, the patient may get a little more calm. So your blood pressure is responsive to your mood, to what's happening into your brain, and to your every meal. But the kind of sustained, consistent drop will show up over time, and sometimes it can take days or weeks. Sometimes it can take a couple of months. A few things to consider and remember, though. One is that consistency is key. So small actions done daily add up to lasting change. Another is that plant-based whole food eating that's rich in leafy greens and legumes and berries and whole grains and low in salt and processed foods can really have a serious impact. And the third thing is that stress reduction practices like deep breathing, meditation, or time in nature can also play a major role in blood pressure regulation. If at any point medication becomes necessary as a tool to help in conjunction with lifestyle changes, please know it doesn't mean you're failed. It's about building the strongest foundation for long-term health and getting the support you need to help you thrive. So Tiffany, thank you for your commitment, your courage, and your hope. We are cheering you on every step of the way. We had a question, are there any studies that FRN knows of that show watching brain rot TikTok videos can actually destroy brain neuron cells? Thanks for that insightful question. Now, let me say at this time there are no studies I'm aware of that show TikTok or other short form videos destroying brain cells. Research does suggest that excessive exposure to fast-paced digital content can rewire the brain's reward systems and can make it harder to focus or to regulate emotions, and over time can make it harder to engage in deep thinking. It's not about killing neurons, it's about training the brain to crave constant novelty, which can weaken your habits and can make it harder to have cognitive resilience. So the good news is our brains are adaptable. By being mindful with media use and by practicing deep focus activities, including mindfulness practices, as well as moving your body and eating well and managing stress, you can build stronger and healthier brain activity no matter where you're starting from. And if you do watch some short form videos on TikTok, you'll be able to recover rather than being stuck in a loop of constant reactivity where your brain loses the capacity for steady, calm, clear focus. So thanks for the great question. I hope this is helpful. Don said, hi Ocean, thanks for the program. It's so important and messages I haven't received anywhere else. My family has a history of heart disease, and I found Dr. Esselstyn last year. I've been on an oil-free, whole food, plant-based diet since last year and found your organization somehow. Your messages resonate and make so much sense to me. I purchased the empowerment package, and I hope I can teach my adult kids and friends. My kids are young adults and have already received poor messages of having to eat animal protein to be healthy. They won't listen to Dad, so if you have any ideas to get this information to them without it coming from me, I'm all ears. I also hope you can get your programs into health classes in schools. Dawn, thank you so much. Of course, we want to get this message everywhere, including in schools, and including to your kids. So first thing is walk the talk, live the message, do your best you can, and as your kids get older, you have to, of course, respect their sovereignty and their freedom, but you can also share what you're learning and let them make their own choices. For a lot of youngsters, especially young adults, feeling freedom and independence is a critical need, and they're not going to want to feel pushed or prodded by their dad in a way that disrespects their sovereignty. But if you can honor them, respect them, support them, celebrate their ability even to say no and to make their own choices, and also let them know that you've learned some stuff you would love to share, that you're excited about, then maybe they'll listen. Maybe you can share some of these episodes with them. And of course, remember that as a parent, it's critically important to convey to your kids the message that you love them no matter what they eat. You love them unconditionally. That truly creates the best conditions for them to feel safe and settled and secure. And out of that security, you create the best conditions for them to possibly listen and engage and learn new things without being in reactive mode to defend against feeling controlled. So I hope that's helpful, and we're sending lots of love to you and to your kids and your whole family. Ricky said, myth or fact, does adding a strontium supplement to a whole foods plant-based diet help better absorb calcium, D3 and K2 into bone cells to help better reverse severe osteoporosis? Is there danger from adding strontium supplement? Ricky, thanks for your thoughtful question. So strontium is a mineral similar to calcium, and some studies, mainly on the prescription form of strontium ranolate, have shown that it can that it can increase your bone density, that it can reduce fracture risk. But it comes with important cautions. So prescription strontium has been linked to serious side effects like blood clots and heart attacks. And over-the-counter forms of it are less well studied. Strontium can also artificially inflate bone density readings on scans without actually strengthening your bone, and it might even interfere with normal calcium metabolism. So for lasting bone health, the best foundation is a whole food plant-based diet that is rich in leafy greens and calcium and magnesium, getting enough vitamin D3 and vitamin K2, and regular weight-bearing exercise. Some whole foods naturally contain small amounts of strontium, like grains and beans and carrots and spinach and potatoes. Strontium supplements may have a role in severe cases of osteoporosis, but they are not without risk, and they should probably only be considered with support from a qualified healthcare professional. Angela asks, thanks so much for all the amazing content. I've been watching all that I can of the main session and expert interviews before going to bed. I wasn't able to finish the expert interviews from yesterday, but with both my parents going through breast and bladder cancer treatments, I was hoping to share the content with them. I've been getting closer to vegan for years, and my mom keeps chastising me for not eating more meat to get my protein. I'm wondering if maybe the videos might be able to convince her where I have not been able to. Thank you for all the great current research. Also, could you please share what to eat to detox metals? My sons and I have MTHFR genetic mutations, and we don't detox things well. We have high levels of metals and toxins in our body, and I have sickle cell issues. I got a Berkey thinking that would help, since the doctor said water was likely a major contributor, but noted your comment about bacteria in them, and now I'm concerned. I just used all my yearly budget on new filters. I've always wanted but not been able to afford a reverse osmosis system. Are there foods we can eat that would boost our body's ability to detox the metals and toxins that we wouldn't naturally be able to? Are there foods that help with MTHFR? Thank you for the research and recommendations. Well, Angela, thank you so much for your very thorough message and for your heart and your openness and your determination to care for yourself and for your family. You're obviously carrying a lot right now with both your parents going through cancer, your own health challenges, and the desire to give your kids the best foundation possible. And I just want to honor, first of all, your strength. It shines through in every word that you wrote. Now, about sharing the summit content, you're totally right. Sometimes hearing the message from trusted experts can open hearts and minds in ways that personal conversations can't, especially within families. So the videos you're watching are packed with science and compassion, and they might be a doorway for your mom to some new perspectives on why you don't need meat to get enough protein and why you are eating the way you are, and it may be really for the best. You're planting seeds, and even if change doesn't happen right away, your love and your example are making a difference. Now, about detoxifying heavy metals and also supporting MTHFR mutations. So MTHFR mutations can impair your body's ability to process certain nutrients, especially folate and other B vitamins, and that can in turn impact detoxification and overall health. So some of the foods that may help support detoxification naturally include leafy greens like spinach, romaine, and arugula. They are rich in folate and antioxidants. Also, cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts. They can support liver detoxification pathways. Cilantro and also chlorella have been found in some studies to help bind and escort heavy metals out of the body. And we also know that flax seeds and chia seeds provide fiber and omega-3 fatty acids, which could help with elimination. Also, berries are high in antioxidants, which can protect cells during detoxification, and beets have been found to support liver health and natural cleansing. Now, eating foods that are rich in natural folate, like leafy greens and lentils and asparagus, may help naturally support healthy levels of the folate vitamin that is critical for you. But you may find that supplementation is still necessary, and especially when people have genetic mutations that can limit the body's ability to activate folate properly, this could come into play. So you may want to take advantage of methylated B vitamins like methylfolate instead of folic acid, and methylcobalamin, which is a form of B12. Also, very importantly, people with known MTHFR mutations should discuss their full nutrition and supplementation plan with a qualified healthcare provider who understands MTHFR and can help create a safe and specialized approach for you. This is especially critical when you're managing heavy metal detoxification and immune health and other chronic issues. Now, as for your Berkey filter concerns, it's true that while Berkey systems do an excellent job at removing a lot of contaminants, there have been some questions raised about their ability to consistently remove bacteria if the water source is compromised. If you're using municipal water, though, or reasonably safe tap water to start with, then your Berkey is probably doing a really good job getting out heavy metals and chlorine and other toxins. Regular cleaning of the system and replacing the filters on schedule, which it sounds like you're already doing, will probably go a long way toward maintaining its effectiveness. And given your situation, it sounds like you're doing the best you can, and I just want to honor you and celebrate you and support you. If it ever becomes possible in the future, a reverse osmosis water system could be another good step to take. And again, as folks may have already heard from me in this summit, the AquaTrue is our favorite and the most economical on the market. They offer under sink and countertop models, and you can find out more and get an FRN member discount at foodrevolution.org/water. Angela, we want to make it a little easier for you to absorb this all for life and to share this with your family. So we're going to gift you with an empowerment package. Our team will be in touch with you. Congratulations. And congratulations also to all of our new empowerment package owners, including Glenn from New Jersey, Mona from Indiana, Sarita from Minnesota, Dan from Tennessee, Irene from Connecticut, Audrey from South Carolina, Maria from New York, Kent from Wisconsin, Trevor and Carolyn from Australia, Jennifer from South Africa, Libogang from Botswana, Elena from Bulgaria, Ager from Iceland, and Vicky from Canada. Thank you all so much for investing in your health and in our mission with your empowerment package purchases. We are so grateful, and we know you all will put it to wonderful use. You know, every year, Food Revolution Network's plant-based coaching certificate program equips hundreds of passionate people with the tools to make a real impact. One of our graduates is Adrienne Davis from Anderson, Indiana. In 2016, Adrienne was suffering from severe panic attacks. They were so intense she thought she was having a heart attack. After switching her diet up, her panic attacks completely disappeared. Inspired by her own healing journey and her husband's reversal of type 2 diabetes, Adrienne joined our plant-based coaching certificate program. This is her story.
There are so many people who are sick today, and they're just not able to live a fulfilling life. And I want this world to be full of healthy people. Hi, my name is Adrienne Davis, and I'm from Anderson, Indiana. In 2016, I started having really bad panic attacks, like to the point where I thought I was having a heart attack. I had no idea what was going on with me. I was miserable, and because of plant-based nutrition, I was able to eliminate my panic attacks completely. And I haven't had them since. So it was just like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. I'm sold on this lifestyle. I will encourage anything else. And literally that was in June 14th of 2020. So I just passed my 4-year mark of being medication free. So I have been coaching people with type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetes online, but I'm now branching out to do some things in my local community. Well, my first official client was my husband. In 2018, he when I had just met him, he had just been diagnosed a few months prior to that with type 2 diabetes, and I had already transitioned to being more plant-based as a vegetarian. That's the way I started. He was a big meat eater, so when I told him, like, I think you should stop eating meat, and try to see if you can reverse your diabetes, and he just looked at me like I was crazy, and he wanted no part of that. I kind of convinced him, and he finally decided to try it for 30 days, and he made such amazing progress in that 30 days. He lost weight, his A1C levels went down, his blood pressure went down. The doctor was actually pretty shocked. And so he stuck with it, and he hasn't eaten meat since. The plant-based coaching certification taught me not only the knowledge that I needed as far as plant-based nutrition and what it can do in your body, but also how to coach clients to make the shift from their current lifestyle to this healthier lifestyle. And it also gave me the tools that I needed to go out and really spread my message and get clients to come and work with me. Like, after I went through the coaching program, doors started opening. I had already gained tools to go and launch a webinar. I had one person hire me as their coach from that webinar. And I just gained confidence. I just kept growing my skills and gaining the confidence as I got each client that came in and started doing discovery calls with people. And it was powerful. I've done a lot of one-to-one coaching with clients, and now I'm actually getting ready to launch a group program. And I'm going to be speaking to different organizations in my local community and just really helping people understand, because so many people don't realize that there is an alternative to just taking pills and insulin for the rest of your life when you get diagnosed. And so I'm just working to help people to know that there is a different life out there that they can have. Like, just knowing that I'm able to truly help people, it feels good. There is a better life out there than sickness, and you don't have to let sickness, especially diabetes, you don't have to let it define you. There's a better way.
Thanks so much to Adrienne for that powerful story. If you are interested in taking this message deeper in your own life, in having a community of practice with other leaders in the food revolution movement, and maybe in becoming a plant-based coach yourself, please find out more by visiting certification.foodrevolution.org. The program runs for 6 months. Our next cohort launches in January, and you can reserve your place today with a refundable $100 deposit and unlock a super early bird discount rate. Again, details are at certification.foodrevolution.org. Francis said, hello from Provo, Utah. Happy to be at Food Revolution this year. I'm striving to eat for reversal of diabetes. I feel great and quite healthy. I need all the help I can get. Food Revolution has been a big place for me. Francis, welcome from Provo, and thank you for being with us. I love that you're already feeling great and taking steps to reverse type 2 diabetes with diet and lifestyle. That is awesome. If you're wanting any more support on the journey, I want to highly recommend a masterclass and course we created with dietitian Brenda Davis. I host it. She teaches it. She is absolutely brilliant, and this is a comprehensive research-based program we created for people who want to prevent, manage, or reverse type 2 diabetes and prediabetes naturally with diet and lifestyle. You can find out more at type2.foodrevolution.org. Again, that's type2, the number 2, .foodrevolution.org. Nicole said, hi and big thank you to the FRN team. I watched the summit last year for the first time, and I'm still learning new things with the latest summits. I started moving towards plant-based last year and found my joint pain went away and my anxiety was reduced. It's great being able to revisit the summit to help with motivation to stay on track, as I have slackened off a little and my joint pain is creeping back in. On a good note, on my recent blood test, my blood sugars, cholesterol, and surprisingly my iron have all improved. I want to share the information I'm learning with my parents and family, as I know great benefits would come from them being exposed to the summit and putting some of your strategies in place. Nicole, thank you so much for sharing your story, and congratulations on the benefits you have achieved. You know, we see this often, though, that people who are pushed by pain may make big changes and get results, and then as the pain starts to go down, sometimes they lose motivation. And this is where we need to make the pivot from fearing or pulling away from suffering to moving towards vision, towards what will optimize our health and well-being, so we can move forward into the life we really, really want and keep deepening the good habits and making progress. There are a lot of folks who get inspired at a summit like this, and they make changes and they get results, but then they slide back. We don't want that to happen to any of you all. So the empowerment package is a wonderful way to invest in your health long term. And if you want to go that next level, Whole Life Club is really the go-to place we created to help lots of folks to implement, sustain, and optimize a healthy lifestyle for life. This is where we practice and deepen in community with others over time. So that is a great resource. And when you get an empowerment package, you have an opportunity to join Whole Life Club with a 30-day free trial and a 60% discount thereafter if you jump in at that time. We're really trying to help you build on the momentum from this summit and carry it forward. So just want to make sure everybody knows about these resources. Lisa said, hello, Ocean and Nicole. I want to thank you for the wonderful information. This is my first summit, and I had no idea how much value there would be here. I only wish I had let my parents know in time for them to catch all the episodes. I just had no idea how great it would be. Next year, we'll make sure to be ready from the start. I have a random question on goji berries and cocoa nibs. Both carry a Prop 65 warning, and I'm wondering, even though these are good foods, should they be avoided? Please include in the response a note about knowing your brand and asking more details about Prop 65. Lisa, thanks for your beautiful message and welcome to your first summit. Now, about your great question about goji berries and cacao nibs and Prop 65 warnings, here's the story. So Proposition 65 is a law in the state of California that requires companies to place warning labels on products that may expose consumers to certain chemicals that are known to the state of California to cause cancer, birth defects, or other reproductive harm. The tricky part is that Prop 65 warnings are often triggered at very, very low levels of exposure, sometimes far lower than would be considered risky under federal standards or in any other region of the world. And in the case of goji berries and cacao nibs, the concern is usually about naturally occurring heavy metals like lead or cadmium that can be found in soil and absorbed by the plants as they grow naturally, and not because anything artificial has been added. So, should you avoid them? Not necessarily. Goji berries and cacao nibs can still be wonderfully health-supportive foods when they're eaten in moderation. The key is to know your source. We always encourage choosing brands that are transparent about their testing and sourcing practices, looking for organic and responsibly sourced options when possible. And if you're unsure, reaching out to brands directly. Good companies will usually be happy to share information about their Prop 65 testing, mitigation steps, why their products carry the label, and what the levels actually are so you can make an informed choice. The bottom line is it's not so much about panicking over a label, it's about being informed and selective and eating a variety of whole foods because you don't want to get too much of any one thing, even kale or bok choy. Somebody actually went to the hospital and almost died from seizures because she was overdosing on bok choy. How much, you might ask? She was eating about a case a day. You can do too much of anything, even super healthy foods. But variety is key, and your body can naturally detoxify and be resilient in the presence of naturally occurring modest amounts of heavy metals. You just want to minimize and be informed. So Lisa, thanks again for your wonderful question and for your curiosity and enthusiasm to be a part of this journey with us. Sarah said, I'm trying to eat plant-based now because of all the evidence in the summit, and I'm wondering if collagen peptides, bovine, pasture-raised, and grass-fed, are harmful or beneficial. I have a few tubs of Vital Protein powder in my pantry. If that collagen is harmful, what would be a plant source of collagen? Thanks for all the helpful information. Well, Sarah, thank you for your thoughtful question and for your interest in learning and growing in this summit. Now, about collagen peptides, especially the ones from bovine, grass-fed, and pasture-raised sources. So, collagen supplements themselves are not necessarily harmful, and they have, at least theoretically, some potential benefit. They're primarily made of amino acids like glycine or proline or hydroxyproline, which are important building blocks for skin and joints and connective tissue. But there's a problem here, and it's that when you consume them, your body digests them into amino acids like any other protein. It doesn't send them directly to your skin or your joints, despite what some marketing claims suggest. And collagen powders from animals aren't the most sustainable choice because animal products come with significant ethical and environmental impact concerns. We'll be addressing this more in tomorrow's episode. The best way to support your body's collagen production is with key nutrients, vitamin C-rich foods like berries and bell peppers, plant proteins like beans and quinoa, and silica-rich foods such as cucumbers and oats. You also want to get zinc-rich foods like pumpkin seeds and lentils, and you want to get good sleep and manage stress and minimize sugar consumption to protect your collagen production. If you choose to finish what you already have, it's probably not going to be harmful, but long-term plant-powered strategies are likely to be more sustainable for you and the planet. And at the end of the day, you want to be building your own collagen as much as possible. Speaking of building collagen and plant-powered strategies, every day of this summit, we have more recipes of the day to help you cooking along as we go through this journey. Nicole D'Andrea Russert prepared these recipes especially for this summit, and they are amazing and delicious. Our first recipe of the day today is roasted tomato basil soup. Rich and savory are two words that perfectly describe this wholesome recipe. The natural sweetness and robust flavor of Roma and San Marzano tomatoes blends perfectly with roasted onion, garlic, and a fresh blend of sweet basil and other classic Italian herbs and spices. The soup is simple to prepare and it freezes well if you want to make a bunch of it and put some in the freezer. Next, we have vegan feta. If you're wanting to eat plant-based foods and afraid of missing cheese, you're not alone. This is a common concern, and we have good news for all cheese lovers. Nuts, seeds, and even tofu can create textures and flavors that are similar to dairy cheese, but with more nutrition and fewer environmental concerns. Give this tofu feta a try and let us know what you think. Next, we have spanakopita stuffed potatoes. Experience the fusion of Greek flavors and comforting baked potatoes by stuffing tender potatoes with a mash of green leafy spinach, savory vegan feta, and creamy cashew butter baked until golden. These make for show-stopping appetizers or even a delightful main course for a cozy dinner. You've just elevated your baked potato game. All of these recipes are available throughout the summit. And I also want to make sure folks know Nicole and I wrote a book together, actually a couple cookbooks. The most recent one is Powered by Plants. We also wrote Real Superfoods. Powered by Plants is our most recent though, and it contains nutrient-loaded 30-minute meals to help you thrive. So all the recipes can be made in 30 minutes or less, and they are fantastically delicious. Find out more at poweredbyplantsbook.com. As you all know, every day of this summit, we have 3 more expert interviews featuring in-depth conversations with the experts in this summit. These are powerful interviews. If you can possibly join in, please do. And of course, today we have number 1, Daphne Bascom, MD, on the longevity blueprint. Nutrition and exercise for health, resilience, and lifelong vitality. Then we have Dr. Gemma Newman on the healing power of lifestyle medicine, how gratitude, connection, and conscious food choices can transform your health. And finally, we have Dr. Monisha Banote on ancient wisdom, modern science, diet, longevity, and the power to prevent disease. All 3 of these will be available along with the replay as soon as we finish today's broadcast until we get ready to broadcast tomorrow. And of course, with the empowerment package, you'll own them all for life, along with the transcripts and all 45 expert interviews. so you can dig in and learn more and deepen anytime you want. And one special tip I want to share is the idea of listening to the expert interviews, kind of podcast style, while you're gardening, walking, jogging, driving, doing other things, and just letting yourself absorb this wisdom. Think what it would mean to have all 45 of these interviews to listen to anytime you want, so you can keep re-inspiring yourself and sharpening your knowledge and your wisdom all year long. All right, folks, well, we're now approaching the end of day 7 of the Food Revolution Summit docuseries. Can you believe there's only one day left? It's coming up tomorrow, and it's going to be amazing. But now is your chance to keep getting your comments posted, sharing your questions, trying out the recipes of the day, watching the replays, watching the expert interviews, and preparing to come back and join us tomorrow when we go live at 7:45 Pacific Time, 10:45 Eastern, 2:45 p.m. GMT, as we prepare to broadcast from Farm to Fork, where your food comes from and why it matters a lot. This is our powerful episode 8. You know, the source of our food has a big impact on its quality and on its safety. And our food choices also have a major impact on the world. In fact, we can reduce deforestation and pollution. We can say no to animal cruelty, and we can take a serious bite out of world hunger and improve public health. Join us tomorrow as we explore the critical connection between our food choices and the world that we share, and discover how each of us can be part of the solution. Tomorrow's going to be huge. For a lot of you, it could be the most profound episode of this entire summit. So please come back and join us then. And if you want to take the next step with us and take it all home for life, then you may want to take advantage of the summit sale price for the empowerment package. It's been such an honor and a joy to share these last 7 days with you, and I cannot wait for our grand finale tomorrow. It's going to be awesome. In the meanwhile, I hope you enjoy some delicious, healthy food, including today's recipes of the day. We are wishing you a wonderful, healthy, and thriving day. This is Ocean Robbins, signing off from day 7 in the Food Revolution Summit. And here's a peek at what's coming up tomorrow. Do you know where your food comes from and why it matters so much? Join us as we follow the journey of food from farm to fork, exploring how what we grow and how we grow it shapes the health of our bodies, our communities, and our planet.
So much of it is hidden from us. Where food comes from, how it's made, how it's accessed, who makes it.
Food is currently the primary source of environmental degradation. 30% of climate, 70% of fresh water, 80% biodiversity loss, 90% of nitrogen and phosphorus pollution.
Stop and think about the choices that you're making and think about that and understand more, educate yourself.
When you have a healthy plant, it's able to fight infections and insects and doesn't need pesticides.
We have to stop focusing on just treating the disease, but we have to move more towards health education and also creating communities that support people and help people to make many of these changes. So the benefit is that we are helping our fellow man to become healthier and better, and as a result, we all will benefit from that.
And the good news is we hear all this dire news about the climate and the earth is on fire and we don't have enough time and it's too late. But I think what I've learned about the power of a system to regenerate, it can happen much more quickly than we realize when we simply give it the right opportunity.
All things are connected. Your food choices shape the future of life. And the source of your food also shapes your health in profound ways. Join us to find out the truth about pesticides and local foods, about whether organic and fair trade are worth the cost. In this episode, you're going to discover how you can build a brighter future 3 times every day with your knife and fork. At Food Revolution Network, we believe healthy, sustainable food should be for everyone. And when you give your body the right fuel, you can thrive. Each year, the Food Revolution Summit features world-renowned experts sharing life-changing insights. But with so much wisdom, it can be hard to take it all in at once. That's why we created the Empowerment Package. Lifetime access to every summit episode and interview, full transcripts, and over $1,000 in bonuses to help you absorb and apply it all at your own pace. When you invest in an empowerment package, you're taking a stand for your health. And you're also investing in the food revolution. You're joining a movement that's changing the course of history. Plus, with every package purchased, we donate to Trees for the Future, so they can plant another organic fruit or nut tree in a low-income community. So if you want to nourish your body, support those you love, and help to heal the planet, this is your moment. Join us. Support the mission. Get your empowerment package today.